With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
If anybody didn't get their fill of short track racing last week, hopefully some fun at Phoenix will help scratch that last itch. But it'll definitely be faster paced action than what we had at Martinsville. Keep your wits about you because trouble can befall you as quick as a rattlesnake strike as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL Truck Series. And you'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is, of course, Joey Tebben. And Joey, like we said, short track racing, but with a bit of a different flavor here. It's quite a bit wider. It's quite a bit faster. And as we've seen on the schedule, they've had a good bit of variety. So this kind of fits the bill of the theme.
Yeah, we've been following the NASCAR schedule in this series and in the Grand National Series for these last 7 rounds of the NASCAR season. Then after this, we go off into the weird zone. In the Truck Series, they go off to iRacing Superspeedway. That's going to be the first real non-NASCAR challenge, and then Dover and Atlanta to finish things off. I believe it's going to be the old Atlanta for the trucks, so that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge than the typical super speedway Atlanta that we've gotten used to over the last couple of seasons. But it's bizarre for me to be up here, Joe. Normally, I'm down in the car practicing in the Grand National Series, but for reasons we'll get into in about an hour's time, I've had to come up here in the booth. So I think I'm excited to see the trucks firsthand instead of watching you guys on the stream.
Well, I'm glad to have your experience. I have to confess, it should be fun getting to work with you again. But speaking of the drivers down on the track, if we take a look at the championship right now, Dennis Faircloth is ahead, but by about 12 points there over Steve Loving. So it's not huge margins. Dallas Sullivan also still within a shout. It could all switch around, and it's starting to get later in the season. So definitely keep your eyes peeled. Of course, we've got good battles as well behind them. Witt, Easterday, Karakov, all separated by 6 points between them. That is very tight for the 6th position there. We have a teams championship in this series as well. Joey, how's that one sit?
Well, this is always pretty close because there's quite a wide variety of teams in this series. You've got the typical names that we've seen in the PRL for many, many years in Whataback Racing and Regan Vogue Motorsports and its many flavors. But you've got Team CPR who's kind of come onto the scene this season, or in the last couple of seasons, with Steve Loving and Matthew Karakov and the gang. They've been fantastic this season. DDI, they're always great. They're looking for that first win of the season. You know, CM Pennington's watching at home, hoping that they can finally get that done this season. The Adams family with Brett and Blaine have been phenomenal. Brett won last week. It's basically anybody's game here, just like it is in the Drivers' Championship. We're not going to be able to determine anything about this Truck Teams Championship until the final round. Then we can start doing some math.
Indeed. And of course, speaking of final round, well, we have the playoffs, and it's not to that final round yet, but look at how much it is narrowed down. 8 drivers are in it, but only 4 will make the cut here in the next round. And right now, Sullivan, Dice, Loving, and Karakov are the ones that are through on that one. It is an 8 points difference between 4th and 5th, which could easily swap around. So those drivers are very much on the cusp. It's a lot higher up to 3rd, so it's kind of a fight between those last 5 to try and decide who is going to make it through. So watch those 5 drivers and see who finishes the highest. They're going to be the happiest probably after tonight. No doubt looking for a win to try and clinch it and make themselves automatically go through. But before we get to the racing itself, we do want to mention that this series is sponsored by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available on the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. It's also sponsored by Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceSpotTV.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision5 coupon code. Also, it's brought to you by the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Also, don't forget about Moradness. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. And finally, there's Mr. Hedge Sim Racing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. Looks like the qualifying has just wrapped up. It's time to go through our starting results here for this race. And Matthew Karakov looks like he is on the pole position. He's going to be flanked by Brett Adams there on the front row, Steve Loving starting from 3rd, and Mike Witt in the 4th spot. Kevin McGarvey will start from P5, followed by Colton Easterday in 6th, and Dallas Sullivan starting in 7th. Outside of row 4, it's Dalton Geyer in 8th. John Minkowski will be starting 9th, and then Blaine Adams rounds out your top 10. Zach Panzarella starts in 11th, and then, of course, in 12th, we have Robert Goff here. Joey?
The hits keep on coming. Unlucky 13th. Alan Dice actually on his return. He had to take a week off a couple of weeks ago after he himself got into some trouble at Iowa, but he's back starting alongside Eric Kulaga, who we see in many a PRL series during the week. Rodrigo Morales as well, taking on the trucks this season. He starts alongside Tom Macy. And then Steven Martinez for Vulture Motorsports, joining his teammate Eric Kulaga and doing the Tuesday-Wednesday doubleheader. And Stamford, Connecticut's own. He's racing from just down the street from me. Jake Maki is in 18th, but it's a big field. 19th, Oliver Goff, the second of the Goffs. Christopher Tepp in 20th. Mark Kalin is not actually going to be racing. He's one of the admins, and he's goofed up by signing up, so shame on you, Mark. I told you I was going to go scorched earth on some of the series admins, and Mark Kalin gets the first reason for it. Then Ryan Traver, Timothy Emanuele, and Richard Pruitt. All of them came afoul of the rules last week. They weren't allowed to qualify this week, so they've got to start in this whole calamity at the back of the field.
Yep, then we get to Dylan Schmidt in 25th, Marty Calvert, Philip Beaver, Ryan Traver, and Andre Bonatti, are going to be starting from the back with some penalties being unable to qualify for this one. No surprises after Martinsville and what we witnessed there. You can see them lined up at the end of pit lane, waiting for the pace car to lead them off and around. Now, last time out, it was all about track position, but with the track being so wide here, is it going to be a little bit easier if you find yourself coming from the back with one of those penalties, Joey?
I mean, we can guarantee at least that there's going to be more green flag running than there was at Martinsville. I don't think we're going to have quite the same amount of caution domination, so there will at least be time if we get a green flag run going to actually make some moves, to actually look your way forward. But it's still very tight quarters, especially on the front straight here at Phoenix. That exit out of what used to be turn 4, what's now turn 2 technically, that gets very, very tight, and that's always a collision point. There'll definitely, I think we can guarantee at least a couple cautions here, and that'll help some of the guys who don't want the longest runs in the world.
All right, we'll see if they can use it to their advantage, as Karakov now has control of the field with the pit lane now starting well before the start-finish line. They'll have to wait patiently before they get that call from the flag stand as they work their way out of 3 and 4 now, up towards the tri-oval portion. Matthew looking for the signal up from the top. There's the start zone, and there is the green flag. Ooh, it is a horrible start there for second place. Not going anywhere. Brett Adams falls behind quite quickly. In fact, looks like he might lose 2 positions right at the start, maybe 3.
This is kind of the new design of Phoenix that you see in effect here. The restart zone, the start zone goes onto the dogleg. It's so wide that if you start on the outside, you might get swallowed up. But Colton Easterday's around already in turn 4. That's the pinch point I mentioned, and he almost made it. He almost made it through. Bad luck at the end with the 109 of Stephen Kirby, who got a face full of number 9.
Yeah, just unfortunately the seas parted, and eventually he became the one that was left holding the ball and wound up just absolutely freight training into the side of him. It was a real T-bone, I believe, into that car. So that'll be some serious damage, no doubt. In fact, he was tipped onto his side, it looked like, from what we saw on that angle initially. He's lucky he didn't go completely over. Yeah,
that's unlucky, because Colton was starting from one of his best qualifyings ever. Put it all the way up in P6 in qualifying. Let's see what happened to him. Through turns 1 and 2, that's somebody to his inside. I don't think that was really what caused it. Just in the exit, Colton gets a little bit too loose. Cold tires. Tires weren't up to temperature with that amount of rotation, and he loops it around in front of the field. And you were exactly right. Stephen Kirby almost goes flipped. Almost goes flipper mode. I was trying to make a Kirby reference. I got nothing there. But he's terrified right now, and he's probably going to have race-ending damage from that.
Kirby's just going to have to suck it up, I guess.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
He's going to have to try and carry on with damage early. Both Kirby and Beaver are in pit lane along with Easterday. Now, did Beaver get involved in this? We're going to watch from onboard Kirby's perspective. Let's see. Oh,
Surprise.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it reminds me of? I used to work at a summer camp, and we would get to play dodgeball with the kids. And it was counselors versus kids. So imagine about 50 of them lined up on one side. You just had to throw the ball, and it would just kind of part until that one poor kid at the back just had no clue what was coming. And yeah, the results are about as you'd expect.
Yeah, I think that is fitting for this series. I think Colton Easterday feels like a dodgeball sometimes, so it's only a matter of time until that happened. But that's a shame for Philip Beaver, by the way. Not only because he's driving a number that I like to go for in PRL series when they're not taking the number 60, but right now, November 1st, it's Philip Beaver's birthday, and it's not been a great birthday present for him in the first 3 minutes of this race.
Maybe a little bit too many celebrations and not enough practice, unfortunately. Yeah. So the number 60. Yeah, back down to 24th as we aren't quite double file. Still have a bit to go before we get racing here. Didn't make a full, complete lap around. You could see the damage on the front left of that machine. So he's definitely gotten a little bit from that opening incident. Didn't get away completely clean there. So lights are still on, and we wait for them to get the signal before they get going for the second time around.
And I think Philip Beaver might need some braces on the front end of that truck. He might need to go into the office after hours and get some things to straighten that up. Because you saw the sponsor on the side of that truck. It's his own dental practice. He's a dentist. He's the racing dentist back in the spirit of Jack Miller. And I hope he'll be able to move back forward. I think he will. I don't think that's going to be the last caution we see tonight. There's always opportunities to take advantage and keep moving forward, and he's gotten that truck as straightened out as it'll ever be, and you never know. Maybe he'll get a birthday present in 36 minutes' time. Hope's not lost.
Yeah, he's still running, and while there is damage, it looks like it's handling well enough. It's not crabbing or anything, so maybe he'll be able to carry on. And here we go. Now we get the one-to-go signal. This time, though, instead of Brett Adams, it's going to be Steve Loving starting to the outside. Adams all the way down into 5th here on the restart. Not sure if he was just napping or what happened there, Joey.
It's just hard to restart in the outside because it's literally physically so much higher up, and it's so much longer of a berth that you have to go around that it's just so difficult to restart out there. I think Steve Loving's going to have the same challenge. And if he's not careful, he's got Kevin McGarvey down there on the bottom. He's got Brett Adams down on the bottom again, and all three of those guys are going to be looking to pounce if Steve can't get it going up the hill.
Here we go, back into 3 and 4 once again. Karakov hoping for maybe a little bit more green flag racing, I'm sure. See if he can keep up that pace that gave him the pole position. And there is the green flag. No wait this time, very early in the start zone. And a little bit of a better start for Loving. Still has McGarvey down to the inside, trying to take that second place away as they plunge into 1.
Cleaner so far, but remember what happened to Colton Easterday. Cold tires, they're still going to be very cold. They've had no green flag laps to really warm anything up. Looks like everybody's okay so far, but coming through the exit here, this wall gets very tight, and there's already some trouble. Dallas Sullivan in the 46, and that's going to be instantly another caution. Dalton Geyer involved, and welcome everybody else into the scene of the crash, too.
And that actually starts with Adams. Weirdly enough, Brett got loose, and unfortunately the car behind that eventually started spinning was the one that got the worst of it. It kind of got into the back of him, and I'd already lost track of who that was initially. There's so many cars having to scatter, but regardless, Adams kind of dodged a bullet, but unfortunately caused a lot of consternation for those behind.
A lot of consternation, a lot of trouble. Let's see what happened initially. Off the corner, that's Brett in the white and green truck. Tries to clear over the outside of Dallas Sullivan, but he isn't quite clear. It's almost like Joe or Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin over the weekend, and he's not able to save it. And it's such tight quarters coming into turn one that a good 10, 15 drivers were behind him with the scene when that happened, and there's nothing they could really do to avoid. And you can see about half the field's pulling down pit lane now with heavy damage already.
And I didn't see that initial contact that we saw in the replay there. The 46 getting into the back of him there slightly. Granted, you're right that he did kind of chop across him. Maybe wasn't completely clear. So you could put it on either side, honestly. And the 46 winds up with quite a thwack into the wall, as well as a few friends along the way. Still haven't completed that first full green flag lap of racing. And like you heard Joey say, we've got a good 10 cars in pit lane taking repairs. Let's watch from Sullivan's view. Maybe this will give us a good idea of whose fault it really was.
It's a little bit of contact. It's almost like at a super speedway when you give the push in the on the wrong corner and it gets the driver in front loose. That's basically exactly what happened. And Dallas ends up in the wall, and then suddenly turns around and sees. I think there may have been a few more drivers involved in that. And you see some of these guys like Robert Goff, Macy, Emanuele. They're all coming down again because they weren't able to get all that damage fixed in the initial stop. They've got to come down again and try and get even more of that damage fixed before we go green in a couple laps.
From what I could tell, it seemed like maybe I'd put it a little bit more on Adams coming across the 46 because he was kind of off to the side, and I don't think he made a move upwards to the higher side of the track, but that's for the stewards to decide. I'm sure they'll have a fun time with that one, with it being on a straightaway. Here we go. This might be a better angle on it.
Yeah, it's just an awkward situation because Brett was clear, so to speak, in quotation marks. His spotter probably told him clear, but Dallas Sullivan was coming at a rate of knots, and they both just met at an inconvenient place. And it was even more inconvenient for the likes of Alan Dice you saw coming through, Dalton Geyer, Andre Bonatti, or Rodrigo Morales, one of the We Race trucks, and one of the Goffs as well. Just, there's nowhere to go. It's an underratedly tight track. You see the concrete lake through the dogleg, and you think, oh, there's plenty of runoff. It's like a road course. You can avoid anything that happens, and then you end up on the second half of the track, and suddenly it's about 2 spun trucks wide, and you can't find a gap.
That's true. Yeah, it does narrow up there on what was the original front stretch quite a bit. Interesting to note that 53, as we were watching on that replay, I was very impressed with Steven Martinez. Just eased it up in time, stayed out of trouble. He had a little nose-to-tail contact with somebody, but I doubt it even crinkled the front. Yeah, as we take a look at that Chevy, it looks like it's still in a good state right here. So he is up to 12th place from that, even though he had to come to a complete halt.
I mean, that's a road course driver right there. And Steven Martinez, last night he had his best race ever in the PRL, second place at Interlagos after avoiding a little bit of trouble on lap 1. He knows how to avoid incidents, and that's a great skill to have in this series.
As it shows, paid off handsomely. We're going to get restarted once again as we reach the restart zone. And the green flag is out. Matthew gets on the loud pedal. Loving held on to second place last time, and he is going to again. This time, though, he slices down in front much quicker, ahead of McGarvey 77, as they go single file at the front of the pack right away.
These are drivers who've realized how to get these restarts going. You see Richard Pruitt, though, up on the outside through turns 1 and 2. He's got Jake Maki and Eric Kulaga behind him. It's going to be clean so far. We've got kind of a diminished field already with so many drivers in the pits and so many drivers with damage that I think we're about to turn our first green flag lap here with Matthew Karikoff in the lead, and we've survived for the first time. Well done, everybody.
We did indeed. but look at Loving behind him up there. He's awful close. There he is in the 27, chasing on the 00 after this first lap. Now, it could stretch away later, and maybe he just had a good start, but we'll have to see. Right now, though, I don't think Matthew's feeling incredibly comfortable with his lead.
Yeah, both of these guys are kind of the stalwarts of this truck series. Karakov and Loving, they've both been around for many, many seasons. They're both in the conversation for moving up to the Grand National Series next season with all their experience here. But before they can do that, they have to fight for this Truck Series playoff championship, and for this season championship for that matter. But the caution's out. We're not going to get that long run, because just as quickly as we went green, we've gone yellow yet again.
I see Emmanuel involved in that one, and I think Beaver was a part of it again, unfortunately, and this time he had a little bit of a harder hit. So I'm not sure if he'll get away as well as he did before. He's on the high side. That's Emmanuel on the bottom. Oh, but I think Phil turned into him.
Yeah, that's just a little bit of an argument with drivers not really knowing where each other were. I think Marty Calvert was the driver all the way down on the dog leg there, and I think on the outside, Philip Beaver expected Emanuele to go a little bit lower to ride in the dog leg, but Timothy said, no, I'm going to ride the track, I'm going to be above the yellow line, and I don't think our old buddy Dr. Phil really saw that happening. Here's a replay from this perspective. You can see that Phil, he expected Timothy to be a little bit lower, and he just wasn't, and that's such a shame for the birthday boy, for Dr. Phil. He's gonna be more unhappy than I think he was wishing when he goes back to the practice tomorrow. There's gonna be some kids getting some unhappy braces put on.
Maybe just a little bit less gentle. We'll see. But to be fair, he actually stayed out, so I thought it was a harder hit, but he's not on pit lane with everybody else, where it looks like, again, we got about 10 cars that are visiting. Unfortunately, some of them look like they might not be coming back out. Morales looks like he is out of this race, along with Mike Witt. Richard Pruitt has a checkered flag next to his name, and Ryan Travers. So definitely some victims already of this track. I'm hearing that Dylan Schmidt might be done as well. No, he's coming back out. He's returning to the track, so he's out, but out from the pits, actually. So he'll get back to racing in about 16th place. Well, we thought it would get a little bit more green flag racing than Martinsville, but that's not proving to be the case at the start of this one.
Well, we got a green flag lap, so I think that's an improvement on Martinsville. But I think the reason Philip Beaver's staying out there is because we've seen 3 cautions already, and it's barely been 10 minutes. Even with that front end damage, if we do keep going on this in this cycle of yellows, track position is going to be important, staying out is going to be important, and if we do get another caution that collects about 15 trucks, he can come down with everybody else and maintain that track position. So it's definitely it's a brave strategy, because it's possible to blow the engine without the repairs, but he thinks he's okay. He's going to keep going around and see if it pays off for him, because there's still 26 minutes left in the race. As the truck count dwindles, there's more possibility of a green flag run, but so far it hasn't looked especially likely.
That's true. You just have to not be the slowest gazelle and just try and pick up spots as time goes on, and you could wind up with a few more points than maybe you anticipated. But we'll watch and see if that winds up being. Hopefully, I'm crossing fingers that we do get some more green flag running out there before this is over, and we don't have a complete repeat of last week, which was admittedly a little bit rough. But I have faith in this league. I've covered it for quite a long time and know a fair few of the drivers, and they have some pretty decent skill out there. So I think before we know it, we'll get going racing, and we'll get to see what they can show.
Yeah, and if anybody's joining us for the first time, this is sort of the undercard of Wednesday nights. A couple of seasons ago, this Wednesday night ticket was split up into the Truck and the Grand National Series. The drivers who are kind of getting their feet wet in oval racing, a little bit less experienced, they go down into the Truck Series, they get their experience, they get better, they hone their skills, and then you move up into the Grand National Series, which is where all the top drivers are. Your Abner Acosta, Bradley Holly, Richard Regan Jr., and soon to be quite a few drivers from this field who have been here for many, many seasons. I definitely expect to see Matthew Karakov and Steve Loving in conversation for that series, but like I said, for now, they've still got business to do here, and I think they're both hoping we can get a green flag run going now.
I love when leagues make a sort of ladder system like the real world, where you have to work your way up and kind of earn your place at the top level. And certainly this is a great example of that. Here we go for Karakov, down through 3 and 4. He's been going a little bit early on these restarts. Is he going to change it up, maybe try and wait, catch them out? Nope, still going extremely early, and it's still working out for him. Loving can't do much to try and challenge him. Down behind them, McGarvey going to slot into line. Brett Adams back up to fourth now. Remember, that's the man that started in second and has had plenty of adventures already today.
He's looking to the inside of Kevin McGarvey through 1 and 2. You see that green and white truck peeking to the inside. That door is going to be closed, though, and he's got his brother Blaine behind. Both of the Adams family drivers have done a great job of moving their way back forward up into the top 5. John Mankowski in the 93 peeks to the inside. He's not going to be able to do anything there. We're going to turn 1 green flag lap again, and Steve Loving's going to look to the inside of Matthew Karikoff into turn 1.
Taking advantage of whatever green flag racing he can get to go on the charge immediately. Doesn't quite work out. Karikoff carries the speed around the outside through the tri-oval and into 1 and 2, and he'll stay ahead as we look back at the 27 machine from the 000. And Kevin McGarvey still in behind them, very close along with Brett Adams. Like we said, it is tight confines at the front. Nobody seems to be able to find any spacing here early in the stints.
Both of these guys up front are teammates, so they're still going to fight for this win just like anybody else will, but I imagine these two drivers are probably talking to each other. They're probably communicating right now and saying, we might need to work together here. We might not want to take each other out, but behind, these aren't teammates. Brett Adams to the inside of Kevin McGarvey. You've got Mankowski to the inside of Blaine Adams as well. McGarvey and Mankowski, they're both Whataback drivers, and they're both looking forward and moving forward.
Ooh, a cut back underneath. What happened with Karikoff?
Oh, Matthew Karikoff pulls down to the inside wall. It looks like he's pitting. Has he gotten a restart violation for going too early?
I think he did. That's the first thing I started to think of, is that went very, very early for him, so he is paying the price. Loving inherits it, and Brett Adams is promoted into second now.
That is heartbreaking for Matthew Karikoff. He needs that win to make it to the next round of the playoffs. There's the big 3 who basically have enough playoff points to make that top 4. There's Steve Loving, there's Alan Dice, and there's Dallas Sullivan. But all those other 5 drivers are going to be competing for that final spot in the Championship 4. And having to do a drive-through in the middle of a green flag run is not going to be good news for Matthew Karikoff. That's going to give Steve Loving, or at least one of his rivals, like Dalton Geyer, who's still out there, the chance to take that 4th spot away in the Championship 4.
And he's definitely going to lap down, so he is going to be in trouble here. He has to hope for the lucky dog to get himself back onto that lead lap if he can just get out now, or if we get a yellow flag to help him, and I think that's going to be the car of Steven Martinez across the track in the 53. He placed himself well earlier, but it seems like this time he wasn't able to get away.
I did all that hyping up for you, Steve Martinez, about how good of a job you did at Interlagos, and now it's come undone a little bit here at Phoenix, but I'll have to wait and see if it was his fault or anything of his doing. You have to imagine there may have been another truck involved. That tends to have been the theme of the incidents tonight, and we've got the replay spooling up. We're hearing, yes, definitely there was another truck involved. That's the 92 of Dylan Schmidt behind, and that's the 92 of Dylan Schmidt into the back of Steven Martinez.
And into the wall hard as well. Wow, that was a wallop. No wonder he's in pit lane already after that one, because that definitely pancaked the right-hand side. Was trying to see who snuck through there, because that was
our man, Dr. Phil. That was Beaver.
Oh. Leave it to Beaver, and he sneaks on through with a very, very lucky escape. Calvert as well, I saw get through on that one. He found the thread of the needle amongst that wreck and managed to go by. Here is with Beaver's perspective. Right in front of him. Wow.
I call that dental surgical precision right there. That was going between the gaps of the teeth. That was beautiful stuff there. I also have to do a dental correction here. I don't want to lose my dental license that I don't have. Dentists don't do braces. That's orthodontists. I'm gonna get a strongly worded letter from the Dental Association after this.
I should have remembered that, because I had to go to an orthodontist a lot as a kid. Didn't have braces, but I did have a permanent mouthpiece for quite a bit as a young child. But regardless, back to the racing as we take a look at the field once again. The 53, other than getting spun around, I think he did get away from it, and he's back on track in 12th, but he lost some of the ground that I think he made up. out of surviving the previous yellow. So he's going to be a little frustrated with that. Loving's now your new leader, and Brett Adams still sits in second, McGarvey in third place. So a shakeup down in the middle of the field. Oh, and I just noticed Karakov looks like he's out. He has exited the session.
Not sure why that happened. I think it was likely a penalty for going a little bit early in the restart zone, but even if he did get a penalty, he kind of needed to stay out there and turn every lap and score as many points as possible, because some of his competitors for that Final Four playoff spot in the Championship 4 aren't even here tonight. Garrett Austin is serving a race ban. Zach Panzarella's got heavy damage. Colton Easterday's got heavy damage. But we don't know. Matthew Karakov has had some technical difficulties in the past that have come afoul at bad times. So we'll have to wait to hear from him or his teammates to see if it was a technical issue or if it was a rules issue, and he just noped out of the session.
Well, I mean, maybe this was a case of you mentioned that these are kind of up and coming drivers. Maybe not everybody's learned that lesson of you got to stay out there and plug away and just get whatever points you can out of a bad situation, because that's definitely a lesson that sometimes has to be learned.
Yeah, that's the tale of the PRL, because points go down to every single position from first down to theoretically 60th, I think, if we ever got a 60-car field, which I don't think we will. But every position matters. You got to stay out there. You got to get every single point, because you can only drop one round in the championship, and you can't drop that final round. So if you go into round 10 with only a couple of points separating you and a driver you're fighting for the championship, you're going to regret it if you didn't make advantage of every single point you could have scored in those first 9 rounds. And if you lose the championship by 1 point, you're going to be saying, I should have stayed out and finished 19th.
Now, the YouTube chat is saying he was DQ'd, but I don't see that flag next to his name.
Well, that was Matthew himself that said it, so I guess I believe him.
Interesting. Again, usually, if iRacing DQs you, though, it will show it. So it had to have been the live stewards DQing him. It was not an iRacing thing. Anyways, Loving's going to take off, and with him taking the point, he gets the easy jump out to the front. This time, McGarvey going to overtake on Brett Adams, who still hasn't quite perfected that outside line on the restarts. But he does have Blaine behind him, so he's got a little support. He only falls down 1 position.
And I'm glad that they've differentiated these 2 trucks. Blaine is in the one that's a little bit more bluish green. I think we could call that Kerry green, like the Eagles colors. Brett's in the whiter truck in front, and Brett is looking to the inside of McGarvey. McGarvey goes all the way up the hill in 1 and 2, and there goes Brett, clear of him, back into P2. McGarvey's falling back. He's going to let Blaine to the inside of him into turn 1 as well. McGarvey is not having a good time there up on the top.
Will he lose 2 spots in succession in 1 lap? He's going to fight it to make sure that he does not. Carries on around the outside, keeps the speed up. Excellent defense there from the 77 on the 33. And he'll slip back into 3rd position. All right, let's get this ball rolling. Blaine actually under threat here. Look down to the bottom. That's going to be the truck of John Mankowski, who actually gets completely by him. So move John into 4th.
Yeah, John's doing a great job. He was a rookie this season. I believe it was Jim Westerfield, who you'll see in the Grand National Series, who invited John into the series. I may be wrong about that, but he's done a great job in his opening rounds here. Oliver Goff, another one of those long-time drivers here in the PRL. I feel like he tends to get into a lot of bad luck, but he's only gotten to 1 little bit of bad luck. When there was that Dallas Sullivan kerfuffle into turn 1, he got a little bit of damage, and he's done nothing but move his way forward after that.
Can see those trucks bouncing around when they try to cut across the apron. I kind of wonder if that's going to bite somebody if we do get a long enough run. Do you feel like maybe that could unsettle the truck enough to spin you?
It probably can. There's a lot of weight transfer. You almost just saw it there on the back straight for some reason, but as the tires start to wear, there's basically no straight lines at Phoenix. You have the back straight where you're straight for just a little bit. Everywhere else, through the dogleg, you're turning, you're putting force onto those tires, and you're wearing them. And that is that's a ticket to success for drivers who can save the tires. It's a ticket to a potential spin if you overheat them and get stuck in that endless cycle.
So Adams still behind Mankowski, was trying to fight it a little bit as here we get some side-by-side between Alan Dice and Oliver Goff. Dice is going to slice through into 7th spot.
Yep, Dyson's up on Goff. That was Calvert, by the way, we saw get very, very loose out of turn 2, technically. It's still impossible to know the quarter numbers here at Phoenix, but he is getting stuck in that endless cycle that I mentioned of overheating, of getting the rear tires too hot, and every single time you exit off of turn 2, you're going to be doing that same slide. You're going to be having that same struggle. He did a good job of saving it that time, and now we look at Dallas Sullivan, who's done a good job of doing that as well, and Mankowski and Blaine Adams. Two guys looking very much forward. Every single truck behind him is damaged. They can only look forward.
They've already fought a couple times on this latest run of green flag laps to the inside for the 33. And Mankowski's going to deny him. 93 stays ahead as they drift off of turn 2 down the backstretch now. Mankowski setting his sights forward again, like you mentioned, up to the podium positions maybe.
This would be pretty cool if this could be the race where Mankowski gets his first win. He's got a lot of ground to make up before he can start thinking about that, though. Alan Dice, he's back after a bad race at Iowa. Didn't have a great race last week either, but he's back doing Alan Dice things. There's a reason this guy's won the last 2 championships, or at least won the last championship in this series. He's basically guaranteed to make the championship 4. It's drives like this where he comes back from bad luck, just looks forward, makes all the passes, and he's back where he really deserves to be, and he's definitely not done looking forward. Blaine Adams is falling right in front of him.
That's going to be from 13th on the grid for him. Meanwhile, we've got Goff, I think, in a little bit of a battle. I heard there. Yeah, that is Oliver with Beaver, and Beaver back through once again. Another guy that has come from the very back, 27th on the grid, up to the top 10 now. But how much speed is in that truck after he's been in a little chaos? Goff under threat from Panzarella, who gets underneath him down through the tri-oval.
And this is one of the battles for the last playoff spot in the championship 4 with Matthew Karakoff out of the race. He's not going to get very many points today. Dalton Geyer, Zach Panzarella, and even Colton Easterday, who's still out there on track. They're all trying to maximize their points right now. They want that final spot in the championship 4. You see Panzarella throwing a block on Oliver Goff down the back straight. He needs this track position. He needs every point, and he needs to make sure he doesn't get swallowed up and start falling, because there is a hungry swarm of drivers behind him, including Dallas Sullivan, who's going to be very fast.
That was an aggressive defense down into there, but thankfully it did not go awry. Chopping down in front of him, Philip Beaver has no interest in handing this over to the 247 at this stage. And will he have to do the same this time? No, he's going to leave the door open. Panzarella's going to dive into it now that he sees the gap. Can he make it hit through? Yes, he is.
Well done, Zach. That was almost a road course move, just a dive bomb into the braking zone of turn 1. Got a little bit high, definitely forced Beaver out of the groove a little bit, but Beaver was up high there anyway. That tended to be the line he was running. A little bit further forward, Calvert and Maki and Dalton Geyer right behind. These are critical points for Dalton if he can take advantage of the 2 in front of him battling. And they're 2 damaged trucks as well. That'll be a little bit easier potentially to pass. Maki goes very high, and there goes Dalton to the inside.
And Geyer, too, takes it with ease down along the front stretch. In fact, he's thinking 2 for 1 maybe as he tries to get his nose underneath Calvert's. He's still underneath there just slightly. The 16, though, has better speed off the corner, and they go back to single file.
Dalton Geyer thinking about how he can get higher. He's got at least Marty Calvert to think about. It's gonna be trouble once he gets ahead of Calvert. Alan Dice is looking forward. Blaine Adams is looking forward, but he's trying to maximize every single spot he can get because this top 5 has already caught lap traffic. That's how fast these 5 drivers, these 6 drivers now with Alan Dice have been. Here is the race leader, Steve Loving. You saw a lap truck right in front of him. You don't see it in this shot, but he's going to be catching some of those more damaged trucks in just a matter of moments.
11 minutes left to go. We're getting down to the last bit of this. Joey, with how many cautions we had at the start, can those who haven't pitted yet get to the end if we stay green?
That's a good question. I think it's probably likely. I think you are probably going to be good to make it to the end because we had cautions basically until the halfway point of the race where you would pit otherwise. So I don't think anybody's going to be worrying about fuel. But you are going to be worrying about those tires because this is the longest green flag run we've had. This is the first time these guys have really been tested on their tire-saving abilities at Phoenix, and this is why I think you're starting to see stuff switch around. John Mankowski had some incredible short-run speed. He was challenging his teammate Kevin McGarvey for 3rd. Now he's been swallowed up by Blaine Adams for P4, and he's got Alan Dice behind him, a guy who's also very, very good at tire-saving compared to this field, who's right behind him looking to pounce.
Definitely impressed with the Adams family trucks this season. And, well, I thought there was going to be a position there for Blaine, but it looks like John is going to be able to deny him that. Round the outside, though, he's going to have to do it the hard way as we watch from Alan Dice just behind the pair of them. Whose hat is he going to throw his into? Whose ring is he going to go and try and enter? It looks like they'll stay, side by side for at least a brief bit. Speaking of chucking it into the corner, that 93 just sent it in and hoped it would stick.
Not quite clear there, John. He got lucky. That didn't end up in a wreck in turns 1 and 2, but he's doing everything to shut the door on Blaine Adams, but he just can't do it. It is stuck wide open. Blaine can't make the move on the bottom, though. He's going to be very frustrated about that, because as the tires start to wear a little bit, you can definitely make the outside work. You can hold up more momentum out there, a little bit like at the end of the run at Martinsville last week. That's why Mankowski's able to hang on, but both of these guys are wearing their tires to no end, and they're bringing the likes of Calvert and even Dalton Geyer back into the fray here, too.
Yeah, I was just noticing that myself. It's going to get a little bit tasty in a moment because it's starting to go side by side between Dice and Calvert, who's looking up on the high side, 2 by 2 potentially this time around, depending on the speed the 16 can take into the corner. No, he cuts back underneath. Beautiful move there.
That's a big move from Marty Calvert. Didn't see that one coming. He's racing against the defending champion, Alan Dice, and he's making him look like any other truck in the field. Looks like Mankowski's going to be clear of Blaine Adams for once into turn 1. He's finally managed to stick that truck a nose ahead. Calvert and Dice is not going to be the same situation. Calvert is still there, and he's still going to fight Alan Dice into turn 1.
And they don't have much room in front of them, so if they do chuck it too far into the corner, they got to watch out behind them. Geyer still giving watch. It's his turn to play the third wheel in this party. Off of turn 2, once again, better speed for Dyson. That was a brush of the wall by Geyer.
And Dalton did get too much higher there. He's struggling in the dirty air, I think, but every point that he can get here is critical for that championship, or I can't emphasize it enough. He's only 11 points behind Karakov right now. He's already outscoring Karakov. He's ahead of Austin. He's ahead of his teammate Panzarella. He's ahead of Easterday. He wants that margin to be as big as possible, because if he doesn't win a race in the next 3 races, he's going to be fighting in that points battle for that championship 4 spot. And that is never a comfortable spot to be in. You want to have that win to lock yourself in. It hasn't come for Dalton Geyer yet in the PRL. He's got to do it the hard way.
Geyer, despite the brush with the wall, seems like he hasn't lost anything, because he's fighting with Calvert and has been for quite some time now. It does seem like Geyer likes to just send the car into turn 1 and hope that it'll stay where it's supposed to go, because he keeps drifting up into the 16. This time it does work as he puts him back down to the 8th position.
Yeah, this tends to be a theme in the truck series where there's a little bit more aggression, there's a little bit a couple more mistakes that happen in the heat of battle than there would be in the Grand National Series, but these are the times when you need to get those mistakes out of the way, when you need to start honing your craft, learn how to race side by side. But Dallas Sullivan, Steven Martinez, and Eric Kulaga, they're all around. And I think the teammates of Sullivan of Martinez and Kulaga, I think I saw them falling down the timing screens together.
I think this starts with Goff hitting Martinez, but it may... Well, I think okay, so there was a little bit of contact between Martinez and Sullivan, but it didn't send Sullivan around. It just slowed up Martinez and kind of kicked all this off. We'll see once we are able to get a replay up, and Martinez could write a novel about all that's happened to him in this race. This time, again, did not touch the wall, just spun it around and is down in 17th, but he is... what was the rule that you can't cause more than 2 cautions? I don't know if he's been deemed the cause of any of them yet, but he's certainly flirting with danger.
Yeah, let's see what happened here. Into turn 1. That's Dallas Sullivan up on the top, but that's Robert Goff behind Steven Martinez down in the bottom. As they exit turn 1, that was Steven getting into the back of Sullivan, and then Robert Goff kind of spins into the gap there and turns Martinez around. Another truck got very lucky falling through there. But you see on the side of your screen, Joe, by the way, this is very interesting. The cautions come out just in time for a 2 or 3 lap shootout when we go green again. The majority of the field has come down pit lane. The top 8 have not, though. They've stayed for track position. And I wonder if those new tires are going to be enough of an advantage to make all that track position up if we only get 2 or 3 laps of racing when we go green again.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, yes, they've been out there for quite some time, but you also have to keep it staying green, which doesn't seem to be something you'd want to bet on necessarily in today's race. That was Timothy Emmanuel, by the way, that made that narrow escape down on the apron in the number 39, who also was one of those who stopped. So the highest driver to have stopped here in this latest caution is Alan Dice in the 5. He sits in 10th. 10 cars in about 3 laps sounds like a little bit too much to me.
I think we may get more than that, though, because if the lights go out in the pace car next time by, we should get about 3 minutes of racing, I think, and that'll be 6 or 7 laps. So that may make Alan Dice a little bit happier. And remember, he's got damaged trucks in front of him. Martinez, Kulaga, Goff, Panzarella, they've all got damage. They'll be easy pickings. But then he starts to get into tough business in the top 5. It's a brave strategy choice. He's only lost 4 spots from it, so it's not going to hurt him too much. He kind of had to go for it. But I'm looking forward to seeing Alan Dice going on that chase forward. I also have to give a shout-out to 2 drivers who aren't here tonight. Championship leader Dennis Faircloth. You're probably wondering, where's he? Well, he's off this week. This is going to have to be his drop week in his championship fight. And also Edward Peltz isn't here because he's doing much more important things. He's off on vacation with his wife. They're on their... he's on his wife Janie's 50th birthday trip. So I think he's prioritizing that over Phoenix.
Well, happy birthday to her. Hopefully they're having a great time. Hopefully he's being entertained by what we're getting here, as unfortunately, as you can tell, the lights did not go off on the pace car that time by. They assuredly should this time, but by the time they get around, it is only going to be about 3 minutes left on the clock, a little bit less than that even.
Yeah, I'm going to look at the timing here as they cross the line. A pace lap took about 1 minute and 7 seconds. So when we cross the line, it's going to be about 2 minutes and 45 seconds racing. That adds up, in my book, to 6 laps of racing. Alan Dice is going to be restarting on the top, it looks like, which could be a good thing for him if he can make some stuff work around the outside. But look at the guys behind him. Marty Calvert, Philip Beaver, they're on fresh tires as well. They can throw it down onto the dogleg and throw it into turn 1. Those could be the guys to look for to take real advantage of these new tires.
All right, so those who have taken them really have to make use of it very quickly and cross their fingers and toes that we don't get another yellow and we can stay green all the way to the finish. Because if we get a yellow, that will very much end it from here, since this is a timed race. Here we go. This time Loving has control yet again. I hope he learned his lesson from what we saw in Karakov. And there it is. Green flag is out. And away he goes. Very good jump from him. Brett Adams still under threat from McGarvey, who's down to his inside. He's got Blaine Adams on the bottom of the track. Will he try to play his wingman? Not much he can do as we go 3 wide through turns 1 and 2.
Alan Dice was thinking about 4 wide in that highlighter yellow truck. The door got shut for him. That is not ideal for his drive forward. Geyer was able to make it through cleanly, though. He's looking forward. Mankowski's on the outside of his teammate McGarvey, but all these guys are on 20-minute-old tires, and Dalton Geyer is coming up on the top in that black truck.
They completed at least 1 lap under green. We've got 2 minutes left now. Loving leads the way over Brett Adams, who did solidify that second place over McGarvey. Blaine looks like he's slipping backwards a little bit. Still quite a bit of racing in the mid-pack. They're not out of the woods. We could still see a yellow out of this.
But Dalton Geyer is saying, for the love of all that is Phoenix and holy, please don't throw a yellow. I need all the time in the world to keep moving forward. He's made up 1 spot on Oliver Goff. It should be easy pickings on Blaine Adams coming up here. He's got his teammate Zach Panzarella too, but at the line it's only going to be 3 laps to go, and he's got 5 spots to make up. 1 just got easier though as Mankowski gets loose.
Woof, and they're going to have to sort this one out as drivers are jockeying for position. The 93 goes backwards, but they stay green. 3 wide, and somehow they hold on to it. It is a madhouse out of there, but right now Loving is leading them. Geyer is up into 6th, and poor Alan Dice, he thought he could be Superman, but unfortunately he could not fly. He banged into the wall trying to go too deep into 1 last time.
He didn't find his lane, his lowest lane back there, but Dalton Geyer gets to the outside of his teammate Zach Panzarella. It's only 2 laps to go, and he's got to make up a 1.5 seconds. It's not an impossible ask, but it might just be. He's got to catch McGarvey, he's got to catch Adams, he's got to catch Loving. How many more spots can Dalton Geyer get here in 2 more laps?
And remember, there are no green-white checkers in this one, so if they get that yellow, that's it. unless they get to that white flag, in which case they are racing to the checkers. Loving still ahead of Brett Adams by about 0.3 of a second. He's been threatening at times. He's gotten within under those 0.3 of a second. As will this be our white flag? No.
2 more.
There's our caution, and we are going to end under yellow. Dice, unfortunately, has wasted those fresh tires, and it's Geyer with him.
That is absolutely heartbreaking. Not only that we're ending this race under yellow, but 2 of those hard chargers, and Geyer and Dice end up together, end up at the back of the field. Steve Loving says, thank you very much. I'll take this win a little bit more comfortably, but that is such a shame. Dalton Geyer was doing a little bit of masterpiece theater there, moving forward. That was beautiful stuff, and it's going to end in tears for him. P16.
I mean, speaking of old literature, I was trying to figure out the murder mystery of how those 2 wound up at the side of the road. There he is. There is your culprit. Marty Culvert turns Geyer, and Calvert was the other driver to take tires as we head on to the last lap.
Yeah, that's just that civil war there. That's just drivers who are looking forward. They were on the same challenge, tripping over each other. It's such a shame. I don't know if Dalton Geyer would have actually been able to win that race. It was a little bit too much of a margin to make up in just 2 laps, and he is actually going to get most of his spots back, luckily. He will be back up into the top 10. But Steve Loving, what a story. In a race with total chaos, in a race where everybody else got into incidents, Steve Loving's shown nothing but maturity up here at the head of the field, and he's going to be a very happy boy with yet another win this season.
The 27 just has 2 more corners to go. He may have inherited that lead, but he played the game right, and eventually he'll take it to victory lane as well as the 27 truck comes out of the final turn towards the cactus at the start-finish line. And there is the checkered flag to signal the win for Steve Loving. Excellent work by him. Brett Adams and Kevin McGarvey are going to wind up in 2nd and 3rd.
It's actually Steve Loving's first win of this season. It's not his first win of the year. He's won races in some other Truck Series seasons in 2023, but this is his first win in Season 4, and this is also going to qualify him. It's going to clinch him that first Championship 4 spot of anybody. Steve doesn't have to worry about anything. He can sit pretty for the next 2 weeks.
Well done. And well done to everybody that did get to that checkered flag. Alan Dice has to exit immediately. So looks like he found himself just barely able to creep across the line before that car expired, because he did have a pretty decent hit. Let's go through the results of this race. Steve Loving, your winner over Brett Adams, and Kevin McGarvey there in 3rd. Marty Calvert wound up 4th, starting from 26, although he had a bit of an involvement in that last yellow. We'll see if there's anything done after that one. Panzarella finished P5, and Blaine Adams in 6th. Dalton Geyer, as you said, was able to get the truck pointed back forward, and he claimed 7th. Alan Dice was 8th. Philip Beaver, in the end, not something to celebrate about, but decent. He finished 9th over Mankowski, who rounds out your top 10, Joey.
Yeah, the hits literally kept on coming for these guys, because Jake Maki, he was up in the top 10 at times, he was out of the top 10 at times, ends with P11. Timothy Emanuele, Oliver Goff, Eric Kulaga, Steven Martinez, and Christopher Tepp all ran into assorted amounts of trouble. But Colton Easterday, the guy who brought out that first caution, who spun in front of the field, got all of his lucky dogs, got back on the lead lap, and put himself P17. His Championship 4 hopes are still smaller than some others, but he's still very much alive there. And Stephen Kirby, Dylan Schmidt, and Dallas Sullivan, they started to kick off the used car lot of trucks with very, very heavy damage at the end of it all.
Yeah, pretty much from down here, it is all DNFs to the finish of this 28 car field. Mark Kalin obviously did not start here today. And then it looks like we might actually have our winner ready to talk to us, Steve Loving, in the number 27 truck this evening. Would love to hear his thoughts on how this race went for him. Steve, congratulations. We were talking about how you may have inherited the lead, but you were definitely up there for much of it, and you put yourself in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I was really hoping for a little more green flag action. Really unfortunate what happened to Matt. I feel real bad for him. He's a teammate. I would have been pretty pissed if that was me. That just stinks to end up getting a black flag over a matter of inches. I mean, the same thing happened to Hayden on our team many races ago when he was in the outside. So it seems to be a team plague to get black flags on the front row. So hopefully I'm not going to be the third one.
Yeah, crossing fingers for you. Now, late in the race, we had that caution that gave us about a 6-lap shootout to the end. Half the field pitted. Were you worried about the end, or did you feel pretty good that there was enough of a buffer they weren't going to come and fly by you?
Well, I was worried. When I saw Brett stay out, Kevin stay out, and Marty stay out. I don't know, actually not Marty, Zach and a few others. I started breathing a little bit better because I had some buffer, but my biggest fear is you're the only one that stays out and you're toast. But even then, I went across radio, radio comms and iRacing. I said, Brett, how are you feeling about this decision? I'm still kind of waffling on it, but I was kind of thinking with the guys on the new tires within the first lap, an incident would happen, kind of reminiscent to the first half of the race. So I was kind of banking on that. But everyone kept it together and it was going to stay green. I was a little bit worried about that, but we had a good space, and I was just paying attention to Brett. I didn't see anyone else really moving up through the field, so I felt good. Even if we stayed green to the end, I think I felt pretty good about it.
Well, like I said, it was a well-played race. Congratulations on your first win of the season.
Yeah, appreciate it. Want to thank United Distributing for the official sponsorship on the truck, and Team CPR for the support. You guys at RaceSpot, you guys do a wonderful job broadcasting, and so I appreciate all your support and everything you do for the league.
Thank you very much. That was Steve Loving in the number 27, taking the victory over Brett Adams, who I believe Joey Tebbin has caught up with.
Indeed I am. Brett Adams. What were you thinking on that last caution there? Were you hoping that you maybe get a 4-lap run to get Steve Loving back, or did you know it was going to be tough business to get him back?
I honestly, I think it's hard to pass, but I think we both made the right call staying out. I think give me one more lap, it would have been close.
So we do have to talk about just the season championship. Obviously, a lot of the focus is on the playoff championship, but you don't have to worry about that. With Dennis Faircloth missing this race, that's going to put you and it's going to put Steve and Dallas Sullivan back into championship contention. How are you going to approach these next 3 weeks, knowing that it's still very possible for you to take this Season 4 championship?
Yeah, my first 3 races started off to a rocky start, but consistency, as they say, the slow and steady wins the race, right? But yeah, these next 3 races will be big. We got a couple wild cards in there with the super speedways. Looking forward to Dover, though, for sure.
And describe iRacing Super Speedway in one word. I want to hear one word from you.
Chaos.
That's the correct word. Brett Adams coming home in second place today, maybe even second place in the championship after this. He's going to be a happy boy. But it looks like we've got one more driver to talk to, Joe. We've got another happy guy, Kevin McGarvey, back in the top 3.
Indeed we do. Kevin, you wound up in those top 3 in the first half of the race, and suddenly there's all these cautions. Were you not too unhappy about that, considering how much track position you had?
Yeah, I wasn't too upset about it. To be honest, I just moved last Sunday, and tonight was the first time I turned my computer on in my new place. So I needed a little bit of time to just kind of get used to the swing of things again and get used to racing competitively, not like your practice or whatever. So I was happy there were a couple early cautions, let me shake the nerves off a little bit and get myself under me, you know what I mean? Get back used to it.
You were among those that didn't pit throughout the entire race, and we were talking at one point about how much the truck jostles when it heads down onto the apron. What was it handling like when you did that towards the end?
It wasn't too bad. It was a little rough, you does kind of want to jerk the wheel out of your hand a little bit, but you kind of get used to it over the run. You don't really notice that it gets worse over time. You're just trying to like go with the flow, and you kind of just end up dealing with it. I didn't find it too horrible.
Well, you survived this one. We've had a couple of races where there was a lot of cautions, and unfortunately with iRacing Super Speedway, not sure that we're going to be able to get away with that. What are your feelings heading off there?
Well, I mean, it'll be fun. I always have a good time there. It might not end up having a great night, but it's always fun. And at this point in the season, I'm not really racing for anything in particular, so I just don't want to really wreck anyone, and I just want to go out there and have fun. So iRacing Super Speedway is a good track for that.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye out for you. Try and keep the nose clean, and congratulations on a podium.
10-4, thank you.
That was Kevin McGarvey, third place finisher here today. But we're not leaving Phoenix left because, Joey, we now head off to the Grand National cars, and they're getting close to their qualifying session. We saw how the trucks are here, but the trucks can often be quite a different beast from the Grand National cars. What are we expecting in the B-Class NASCAR cars?
We're expecting longer green flag runs first and foremost. You're going to have to save tires a little bit more. You're going to have to do a little bit more braking. You're going to have to do a little bit more tire saving. It's going to be just another type of challenge, and that's why it is the higher level series here on Wednesday nights. That's why this is the upper card. I'm curious, though, Joe. I wonder what happened to Joey Tebbin. I don't know why he's not going to be in the field tonight.
Well, you said you had some inside information on that, and I believe you. So you want to give us the lowdown on what happened here?
Well, unfortunately, as we'll take a look at the schedule for just a moment, last week was Martinsville, and those of you who know Martinsville in iRacing League Racing know that there's lots of cautions at Martinsville. There's very little green flag racing. Unfortunately, I was the cause of 2 of them and a third incident, and in the PRL, you can only cause 2 cautions before they park your butt for the next week. So I don't get to race this week. Luckily, there was an opening in the booth, and I get to get paid instead of racing. So how about that? Take that, PRL admins. Take that, Nick Hunter. But I will be back next week at Chicagoland. You won't get to hear my voice for too much longer this season. Chicagoland, Dover, and Auto Club to finish the season. 3 tracks where tire saving's very important. Auto Club not so much, but still very important. And that's going to be a big challenge in these final 3 races of this season, end of the playoffs in this series as well.
I'm not going to lie, I missed working with you. I'm a little sad that I won't get to have you for the rest of the season.
Maybe next season.
Okay. We'll see what I can do to lure you out. But regardless, there is the schedule. But let's take a look at the championship, too, since this has its own battle going on. And up at the top of the drivers, it is Richard Regan Jr. over Abner Acosta. That has been very, very close, but it is stretched out from the 2 points difference of last week. Now Richard getting himself a whole 10 points away. That's still not super comfortable. Bradley Hawley's honestly the biggest surprise in all of this. He falls down into 7th. Usually he's fighting for championships. It's Tyler Justice and Danny Cervantes that are instead following up those top 2, hoping that maybe they can get a little bit closer to them. But unfortunately, they're starting to slip backwards a little bit at this stage. Of course, just like the other one, we also have a teams championship. Joey, why don't we run down that one?
Well, you see, Regenboog Motorsports have actually done a solid job this season. Richard Regan Jr., Danny Cervantes. Well, Danny Cervantes is on the developmental team, but Richard and RaceSpotTV, they've been scoring some good points for that team. Richard's been doing the majority of it, but they're only 40 points over Whataback Overdrive this season. Whataback kind of had an off season last season. They were fighting with me and Nick and Ted at Atomic instead of fighting for the championship, and Jeff Evans and Bradley Hawley have turned things around. Doug Evans as well. They've got more points. They're in the fight, and they definitely want to beat the Regenboog guys to that team's championship. Can't count out Hypersport Racing either with Dustin Scruggs and Brett Punkari. Maybe not the drivers with the raw speed of Richard Regan Jr., but if we get craziness in these final 4 races, you never know what could happen. They could be in the conversation for at the very least 2nd.
Also, they have the playoffs as well. And this one slightly different because last time, remember, it was 5 drivers kind of all fighting for that one last spot. It's a little bit separated here. It's not completely out of the question, with Jeff Evans about 18 points away from Danny Cervantes. But then you look at that, it really drops off. Zemke, Knight, Lowe, and Dick are quite a ways behind. They need probably one of those wins or something miraculous to happen with those in front of them to have a chance at trying to sneak in to those top 4. But Acosta, Richard Regan Jr., and Bradley are pretty solid there up at the top, especially Abner and Richard. Look at that, 185 points above the cut line. They are not even within shouting distance as we head off to the
great camera, Doug.
Hopefully.
Great camera.
Yeah, Doug giving us a little bit of a view of his name.
That's just what he looks like. That's just what he looks like.
Apologies. I think we've got a little bit of a technical issue, but we'll try and get that sorted out in a bit. I can tell you in the qualifying right now that Jeff Evans has the provisional pole. He's already taken both of his laps. We're still waiting on a few other drivers to work their way around and take laps, including Cowgill, Scruggs, Lowendick still need theirs, Acosta as well. As now we finally got pictures of the drivers on track.
Now we get to watch a Coen Brothers movie, because it's the Ballad of Dustin Scruggs out here on track. He's been one of the new additions to this series this season. He's done a very good job, has been much faster than me all season long, and he's going to set out with 2 minutes to go on his qualifying run. This is not really a track where you can build up speed on that first lap and go for it on the second lap. You need to have speed on that first lap. He's going to set up turns 1 and 2, or turns 3 and 4 now, rather, to get as much speed as possible onto what is now the front straight of the dogleg, and he's going to be on the clock now. He's going to be on a timed lap.
Coming around through 1 and 2, riding just about a lane above, maybe about half a lane off of that yellow line, and down the back stretch. Let's see what he can put down for his first flying lap. Right now, we've got about 17 drivers that have managed to set one, although I think there's going to be some penalties here as well to keep them from qualifying. 28.2. That's going to be only good enough for 17th out of 19 now that have set times. That's not really lighting the world afire.
Well, he did actually ride up high. I think he realized that his run through 1 and 2 wasn't quite good enough, so he basically said, I'm gonna sacrifice this first lap. I'm gonna go for the second lap. Ted Lowendick, by the way, I don't want to be remiss to mention that, has put it on to pole. A guy who'd barely driven stock cars on an oval before this, but let's see if Scruggs can catch him. He's gonna slide it across the line. A very beautiful slide. It was fun to watch, but I think he's zero.
Third.
No, he didn't. It does count. P3 for Scruggs.
Wow. Style and speed, apparently, for the 11. Barely got it across the line. You're right. I thought he maybe had touched that wall, but not to be. And he is going to wind up on the second row. Zemke, on his second lap, has taken the pole away from Teddy Lowendick. Wow.
This is upside down town. Richard Regan Jr., Abner Acosta, Bradley Holly, Tyler Justice, nowhere to be seen in qualifying. Adam Zemke and Ted Lowendick are the front row. Maybe I should get out of the track more often. Maybe I should be up in the booth for the rest of the season. We'll flip the results sheet on its head.
Unbelievable. 21 drivers setting times, and it is very shaken up compared to what we typically see, as it looks like we've got a chance to go through our starting results then of this event, as nobody can set a time from here. Zemke on the pole next to Teddy Lowendick, who has been impressing here in the Oval Series. Abner Acosta will be starting from the third spot with Dustin Scruggs in P4. Jeff Evans starts in fifth today, followed by Bradley Holly in P6, and Thomas Sink starting from seventh. Outside of row 4, it's Richard Regan Jr. Really shocking qualifying for him. Nick Silver starts from 9th, as Doug Evans will start in 10th. Then it's Mark Kalin in 11th. Outside of row 6 is going to be Reese Bogue in 12th.
Unlucky 13th went to the guy who has my number, Colton Lane, starting alongside Nick McLaughlin. Good qualifying for him as well. Tyler Justice, driver who's won 2 races this season, shockingly in 15th. I don't know where the speed went for him. He starts alongside Brett Punkari. Mr. Jones, John Jones, starts 17th, alongside another Regan Bogue driver, much slower than usual, Danny Cervantes, Patrick Cowgill, Jim Westerfield, and Jacob Emery, last drivers who set a lap time. There's a whole host of other drivers, Joe, who were not allowed to qualify after last week. Dominic Beijing, Daniel Knight, James Morgan, Waylon Turner, Nick Hunter, and Nick Byer. The majority of those drivers disallowed from qualifying after also being naughty last week. Not quite so naughty to get a race ban, though.
We just so happen to have radio communications with Mr. Lowendick, so I think we are going to have a quick chat with him. Ted, congratulations. So close to pole, but a front row start here. Oh, you caught us by surprise. Did you expect to perform this well?
No. No. It was a really good time to put in my optimal lap for the week. Let's go ahead and just say that. I was shocked. I came out of turn 3 and was like, oh my god, we're up on our optimal, and yeah.
Ted, is this a sign that I shouldn't get in the car anymore? Because the second I step up into the booth after they ban me for a week, after they ostracize me, you put it on the front row.
No, I guess it just means I should practice more often. So.
Well, and you were on the front row last season at Indy. You started. Wait, no, you weren't even on the front row at Indy. You started third because Nick was on the pole. Is this your first front row?
I think so.
Because I lied to Joe. I told him it wasn't your first front row, but it is. Happy day after Halloween. You got a candy-fueled high.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, Ted, the one thing, before we let you go, before we let you warm your tires up, please, for the love of God, don't start in third gear.
Well, nope, you don't have to worry about that with me. I just hope we survive, the first 3 or 4 laps. Car's very loose on these cold tires. Once they come in, it's pretty nice, but up until that point, it's a little sketchy. So
right. Don't do a Colton Easter Day. Bye, okay. Ted. Have fun.
I don't know what that means.
Ted Lowendick. Good to talk to him, but we'll let him do his talking on the track.
Yeah, I mean, and usually he does. He does a fair job and has done a pretty good job so far this season. Crossing fingers, I've got a piece of wood next to me. I'm hitting it right now that we haven't commentators cursed him here. But the 72 going to be starting next to Adam Zemke. We've focused so much on Ted. Let's not forget that's our actual pole sitter there in that red number 57. Here we go. There is the green flag, and it's a good jump for Zemke. As well, it looks like it's a good jump for Acosta, who's going to take that second place away from Teddy pretty quickly. Watch out for the 51 of Evans.
Yeah, things have not gone well for the outside line, just as they did in the truck race. Ted is able to slot back in third, so it could have been far worse. He's actually going to slot in fourth because Jeff Evans has gotten to his inside off of turn 4. Zemke, though, in the lead, and that bright red car has been able to hold on to the lead. He's got the tire wizard behind him in Abner Acosta, though, and it is tough to keep that guy behind in the long run.
Sink took a little bit of a look. Oh!
Abner spins!
And that's Acosta!
It is the upside-down world. Abner Acosta has made an unforced error on lap 1 on his own volition, but he does have a missing front bumper, so he may have gotten hit.
I think that was afterwards, though. He spun it on his own. That is an extremely rare mistake from Abner Acosta, especially of that nature. He did get a huge swipe across the front that, ripped off the complete front bumper, as he is going to get it going, but I don't know what state that car is in. He does have a black and orange flag. He's been sent down pit lane to have to get forced repairs because of that, unfortunately.
What is happening? Halloween was last night, guys. This is not the time to be spooky. This is not the time to do the ghosty things. But these guys are all clearly just hopped up on take 5s and almond joys, because it's all flipped upside down. The guy who you never see make unforced errors like that, he's done already. He's going to be able to get back out, I think, but he's going to have some tough time doing that. Let's see what happened to him. Just gets loose. Nothing more to say about it. Gets too fast, or takes too much speed into turns 3 and 4, loops it around mid-corner, gets hit by Waylon Turner, and that's it. That's Acosta done.
Wow. Now, I am not the driver expert, obviously, but I have obviously driven a lot of laps in a number of tracks, this being one of them. I've always found the bottom line, when you pinch it in a lot of cars, it tends to make things loose. Is that the case in these machines here? Do you think maybe he just kind of didn't factor that in?
That's definitely what happened. It's just weird for it to happen to Abner Acosta, who is, of everybody in this field, there's no driver who is more in control of every aspect of the vehicle than Abner Acosta. But you see him down in the bottom, up there, just spinning totally on his own. Waylon Turner comes through. Waylon's going to be unhappy that he was the only driver collected in that, but that is just astonishing that we saw Abner Acosta make that mistake that early. And we might have our first winner finally. Abner won 2 races this season. Richard won 2 races this season. Tyler Justice won 2 races. The first of those guys is in 8th right now.
Interesting. Nick Beyer, by the way, started from pit lane. I don't know if we mentioned that. And because of this caution, he gets to stay on the lead lap. So that worked out beautifully for him. But now he's going to have to start from the back of the field as the lights are off and the pace car is already in. Zemke restarting from the pole once again, but this time it is Evans to his outside. Lowendick is going to be restarting from 3rd. Let's see if he has a little bit of a better time this one, because he lost a number of spots quite quickly there at the first lap on the initial start. Here we go. Out of the last 2 corners and onto the tri-oval. The green flag is out. I think the 57 waited long enough this time. Yes, no black flag next to his name. Does look like a better run for the 72. In fact, he's got a little bit of help from behind, pushing him almost.
Oh, Dustin Scruggs gets into the back of Ted Lowendick and loops it in front of the field in turn 1. It's going to be an instant second caution. Richard Regan Jr. is involved. Tyler Justice is involved as well. We're going to get a new winner for the first time this season.
And Scruggs goes up and over as well. It was a massive accident for him. He almost saved it about twice, but unfortunately he got hit, I think, by the 62 of Kalen. That sent him completely around. and it was Richard Regan Jr. in that 56 that had no place to go, an innocent victim on that one. What a wild restart.
Yeah, Dustin, I think, got on the brakes going into turn 1 there because he was getting so close to the back of Lowendick, was trying not to get into the back of him, but loses the rear on cold tires, and it gets so tight through there that everybody piles in. You see John Jones in the 90, Cowgill, Tyler Justice, who's still backwards, Richard Regan Jr. with huge damage. When something like that happens on a restart, there's no avoiding it, and it just so happens that every driver who's won a race this season was involved, and many playoff drivers were involved.
Yeah, he talked about getting into that turn 1 too hot. From what I could see, the 11 made slight contact actually with Teddy, and that's what started him spinning around there. It just hooked the nose of his car instead of the rear of Ted's car, and that started the chain reaction. There's the view from on board, another one of the victims.
John Jones. John Jones, that's tragic for him. He's had a bad couple of days, was on a great run in Interlagos last night and spun it or got involved in an incident. Mr. Jones involved in that as well. But you see those top 3 guys, Joe? Adam Zemke, Jeff Evans, Ted Lowendick. 2 of those guys are under the playoff cut line, or under the Championship 4 cut line. Jeff Evans is the first driver above that cut line. This is going to be a pretty big day because one of these guys could potentially be a wild card and knock somebody like Abner Acosta or Richard Regan Jr. out of the Championship 4.
And I'm looking at 5th in line. Bradley Holly is back there in P5. Now, he's not part of, he's well above the cut line. He's got very little to lose, and he had a bad week last time, a bad race back at Martinsville. Is this when the 184 just throws caution to the wind and say, you know what, I want to get this win, I want to make up for it?
I mean, he can basically do that now. All of his competitors in the points championship for this season and for the playoffs have crashed out. He can throw everything here. He got a triumphant return win at Pocono last season after many, many seasons of drought. Actually, I think it was only 2 seasons of drought, but all the same, he got back into victory lane, and this could be his chance to get a win this season because he's only got a couple of guys ahead of him. 2 of them are his teammates, and you know Brad's going to be pretty good at tire saving if we get a long run going.
Yeah, you say drought, but it's kind of a Lewis Hamilton situation.
Yeah,
where,
it was his first drought ever.
Yeah, and he's bounced back from it already. We'll see if he has another little revival here tonight or not, or is he going to have a hard fight off of guys like Zemke, Evans, and maybe even Lowendick, who I'm sure would be thrilled to maybe try and get a win. We'll see whether or not. I know we're giving him a lot of attention, but it's hard not to. I guess he's kind of the Bill Elliott. It's a fan favorite situation just because of the hijinks he gets up to on his webcam. I know he suckered me in with some of the fun that he tends to have on those cameras, so it's hard not to cheer for the guy sometimes.
And I do have to give full disclosure. He and Nick are my teammates normally in this series. When I'm not sitting in prison up in the booth, I am usually racing with them too as Atomic McLevin Dick Racing. But it's just a 2-driver effort today, and you can't be too biased when somebody's doing this well. Nick and Ted, especially Nick, no oval experience whatsoever for Nick. Ted had oval experience in Indy cars, but not in stock cars. They both jumped into this series because I convinced them, and they were faster than me and a lot of drivers who have been racing nothing but this for a while. It's unfair.
It never feels good when that happens, does it? So, well, he's going to try and prove how fast he is here today, as the bright red ketchup machine of the number 57 is going to get him going once again. And it seems like so far we've been behaving with that restart zone. We have had one of the trucks fall victim to that tonight, but this was well within the restart zone. My goodness, he left Evans behind in a big way, and Teddy's going to try and capitalize on that as he's down to the inside.
With a 5-wide fan out through the dog leg, though, this is dicey stuff. Bradley Holly and Thomas Sink, the 2 teammates, very close side by side. Jeff Evans trying to make the outside work on Ted Lowendick, Danny Cervantes, and Doug Evans. We didn't see the caution through turns 1 and 2 this time, but everybody's still throwing Grand National cars at each other, and it's as close quarters as ever.
Looks like somehow, I didn't think Evans would hold on to that P2, but he's going to get back ahead of him as behind them. You can see the 3-wide racing now. That's Colton Lane stuck in the middle of the 4 and the 24, but it looks like Nick Silver's number 24 machine is going to come out a nose ahead of the rest.
Respoke and the black and green number 4 trying to get by Nick Silver. You see a peek, though, from Bradley Holly on Ted Lowendick at the head of your screen. 2 playoff drivers fighting for that spot in the championship 4. Ted's going to hold on the outside. But as you look at that giant eye behind him, you can see right into his strategy. And he's using up the tires, I think, a little bit early while Brad is down there on the bottom, the shorter line. Ted can fight as long as he wants up there on the top, but the tires will start to fall off on that longer distance.
And we're watching Bradley Holly now. I've sometimes compared him to the Terminator. He just does not show emotion. He is incredible, the way that he manages himself. And right now, I mean, you wouldn't know that he's fighting this hard for a podium spot.
You wouldn't. It's, I mean, he looks like he's dead inside at times, but that's just the Bradley Holly way. He's going to be happy he was able to clear Ted Lowendick, though, but Ted is actually going to be having a happy Halloween down there on the bottom. He's able to switch him back road course style. If he can be later on the brakes into turn 1, he may have a chance to get him back, but Brad's carrying the momentum. He's going to keep fighting this, and he may be clear of Ted if he can make the outside work in 1 and 2, but he's not able to do that yet.
There's the alternate angle, still watching Holly. They got to watch out because Thomas Sink's starting to approach along with Nick Silver, who I mentioned before. Another little cut back there from the eyeball machine of Ted Lowendick, but no dice. He has to slot into line. So they go single file for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Up ahead of them, they're losing a little touch with Zemke and Evans.
Yeah, well, all this has been happening. Jeff Evans, first and foremost, has been laughing because he's comfortable in 2nd. Adam Zemke's been laughing even more because, first of all, he went under the radar because he had another driver to his outside who qualified in the front row, but he's done nothing but restart beautifully, pull gaps over the rest of the field, and he is looking very, very good right now. It's a driver who he hasn't won in a couple of seasons. I believe his last win was more than a year ago. It was at Chicagoland in the trucks. This is a very different business, but he's a guy who can save tires for the long run as well. And I think he'll be comfortable with Jeff Evans about half a second back, or half a tenth of a second. No, half a second back was right. I was right the first time.
We'll get there eventually. Down through 1 and 2. Once again, very different lines between a lot of these cars at the front of the field as we check in with the back between the battle between McLaughlin and Justice, along with this fight between Cervantes and Kalen as well. That's Kalen on the high side in the 62, wheel to wheel across the stripe. Advantage slightly to Cervantes down into turn 1.
Danny Cervantes versus Mark Kalen into turn 1. That's like 2 nuclear bombs trying to fight each other, but it looks like they're going to get away without any explosions. Danny's able to clear him off at turn 2. Mark's going to get a little bit slidey. He tends to like to do that off the exit of the corners. He's going to slot back in line for now, but this is the longest green flag run we've had so far, and you're going to start to see, even in just a couple of laps, the drivers who have been worse on their tires start to fall back, the drivers who have been better at saving moving forward, and I have a feeling that some of these guys in the top 10 may start falling before we know it.
One of the things, because I could never really get a good handle here on oval racing, is Westerfield still to the inside of McLaughlin. Doesn't quite work out for him. What things can these drivers do to save these tires? What are some of the methods that they use to manage them?
Well, first of all, I should say, Joe, you've been commentating this series this season. You should know that I don't know how to save tires. I don't know how to do that. I'm one of the worst in the field at doing that. But the thing that makes drivers like Abner Acosta and Richard Regan Jr. and the like so good at that is they're so smooth, they're so experienced, and they know how to be fast while also saving tires. I could save tires all I want. I could be a second a lap slower doing that, though. Abner knows how to put the inputs in to brake that little bit earlier, to lift off that little bit earlier, to be that much smoother through the corner to save those tires. Most of it is dumbfounding. A lot of it comes down to just natural driver skill, but there are things you can learn, and you may be able to pay Abner Acosta to teach you some of those things.
He's actually 5 laps down from the leaders, but this is the opposite end. Whoa, as a couple cars do brush the wall coming off of turn 2 once again. This is what we were talking about with Karakov earlier, that we still didn't get complete clarification on what he meant by a DQ, but if he was able to carry on, this is what you got to do to try and just put the laps in. Well, we got a wreck down out of the start-finish line. It's going to be Nick Beyer, and a narrow escape for Bajin. Holy cow, the 66 found the tightest of spaces to get away from this one.
What a lucky dog. Patrick Cowgill involved as well. Heavy damage to the rear end of that car. His his final Xfinity Series season for the moment before he moves into the trucks next season has not had a ton of good luck for him. And he's going to come back into the pits for repairs, but when the engine is smoking like that, that tells you it's going to be about half an hour of repairs. That's what happened through the dogleg. A little bit of contact and a little bit more contact in there.
Wow. That was Dominic.
That's insane.
I mean, you couldn't have done it twice if you tried. It just the spinning of the car worked out perfect, and he found the gap. So the 15, unfortunately, not going to be able to have the same luck as every single car that is out there is in. It looks like, Emery and Evans were the last two we're waiting on. They have now pitted as well. So no games with the pit strategy, at least for the Grand National cars. Let's see who gets out first, though.
This is a big moment for Jeff Evans because he can potentially get a jump on Adam Zemke here in the stop if he can get a better run off pit lane. But Adam Zemke's lucky. He's got that lead pit stall because he qualified first. He's got the cleanest run on pit road exit. It's going to be tough to beat him out here, but everybody's going to be trying to take that track position away.
Oh, it's Holly. Holly manages to jump Evans in that one, gets a much better pit stop. And I think that was just getting in and out that much quicker because the pit stop times are pretty even between himself and Jeff. So he just got on the throttle, was smooth out of there, and was able to jump him. Zemke holds on to the lead. Lowendick will return in fourth, and Nick Silver in the fifth spot. Out of drivers that have climbed up from the back, especially those who did not set or were not allowed to set lap times in qualifying, Nick Hunter's up 13. He's not doing too shabby.
Excellent job by Nick. He's stayed out of trouble. He's done a good job there. I'm shocked right now. Tyler Justice is up into P9 rather. He was involved in one of those early cautions. He got a huge chunk taken out of the front end of that car, but he's still out there. Didn't get any damage repaired in that last stop. I think he's as fully repaired as he can be. I mentioned he might be out of contention for the win, but I don't think he is. That car looks pretty clean, and he's only got 8 drivers in front of him to pass. I mean, the rear end doesn't look quite so good, but the front end's clean.
Well, why don't we have a chat with one of the drivers that have been sitting on pit lane here. We've got Patrick Calgill with us. And Pat, unfortunately, the night not going quite how you anticipated, I'm sure. What are your feelings so far in this race and how it's been going?
Yeah, I don't like this car. And my race is done. I got 32 minutes of repairs, so I don't have enough time to get them all done.
Well, that is a real shame, especially since it doesn't look like that last one was necessarily your fault from what I could see. I'm not sure if others would disagree. Are you looking forward to put this one as well as Martinsville behind you? Because we've had a rough couple of races here with these last 2 tracks.
Yeah, I have not been having a very good season at all. It seems like everything just happens to want to hit me.
Well, it unfortunately, I'm not sure that we'll be able to escape the craziness with iRace. We're not going to the IRSS. We're going to Chicagoland. So maybe that will be a little bit more normalcy. Do you see yourself maybe performing a little bit better when we go to the Midwest?
I have not been very good at Chicagoland, so I'm going to say no. I probably won't do any better than I've already been doing.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck. We'll try and send some good juju your way. And again, commiserations on tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Patrick Calgill on the 31, who seems to think he's done for the night. Unfortunately, with him being involved in that last wreck, it probably is night over for him. Zemke has control of the field. This time it's Bradley Holly to his outside, but second place has not been doing well on these restarts. In fact, doesn't do too great here on this one. Jeff Evans is already fully past him. Nick Silver might actually be fully past him too.
This is the funnel effect into turn 1 here. Look at Tyler Justice on the bottom behind Reese Bogue, trying to take advantage of every spot he can get. He's already up into P6, ahead of Ted Lowendick, ahead of Thomas Sink. Nick McLaughlin's up into the top 10, but Nick Hunter goes around on the front straight. As quick as the caution went away, it's back out again. That's just how Phoenix has gone tonight.
Single car incident this time, though, unless he got turned by somebody. And I think it was a mix. I think Daniel Knight made some contact with him, but the car was already getting pretty loose, so kind of more of a question of when and not if, from what it looked like. Although he maybe could have caught it. We'll check on the replay and see what everybody else thinks Here it is, coming off of 2. What do you think here, Joey?
Well, off the corner, he's got his teammate Jim Westerfield ahead, but nobody had anything to do with that other than Nick Hunter. Just got loose through the middle of the corner, tried to save it, and he was looping it around before the corner even ended. He had Daniel Knight behind him, who I think got into the back of him, but Daniel couldn't really do anything there. Nick was already spinning. He was already losing the car, so bad luck for all those guys. You see a couple drivers coming down pit road this time. Some of them damaged, like Richard Regan Jr., to get more repairs, but there's still 30 minutes to go in this race. I don't know if you'd be able to make that full distance on fuel. There's the contact in more detail. Like I said, Nick Hunter was already losing it. Daniel Knight had nowhere to go there. He's not going to get faulted with that caution because he was just there for the ride.
Wrong place, wrong time, it looked like. Yeah, very little time for him to react. Watching Richard Regan on my screen just because I'm kind of trying to see how long he'll take. He's actually still on the lead lap. And if there's anything I've learned from Richard Regan Jr., if he's on the lead lap, he's still a threat. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled because if he manages to keep out there, even if he does have a little bit of damage, he could be climbing back through the order.
Yeah, he's a crafty little guy. You can never count him out, unfortunately, but he's in the lead of the championship right now, and he knows about the rule that you only get one drop week, and he has had a perfect season so far. His worst result has been, I think, 8th that he had a couple of times in rounds 2 through 4, but he's had wins, he's had seconds, he's had podiums. His worst result's actually a 5th place. I gotta correct myself. When your worst result is a 5th place, you can afford to have a drop week like this and still be fighting. You can't afford to have 2 bad weeks like this because suddenly you're back in contention with the likes of Acosta and Justice.
Exactly, and he did exit still on the lead lap with enough time to get lined back up because we actually haven't gotten the one to go signal quite yet. And they're actually getting, I think, a little bit of a chat from Bradley Hawley, who also acts as one of the race control cars. And I think he's had enough of some of these yellows, it sounds like.
Yeah, he said that at Martinsville last week, too, and then I caused 2 more yellows, so I don't know if that's going to do much.
Well, you're not out there this time, so it'll have a different effect.
But they've still killed each other, so it's an unfortunate reality of the Phoenix Raceway, sadly. It's just what happens here. It's not Martinsville, it's not guaranteed cautions, but yeah, it is. It's tight quarters. There's lots of places to run into each other, but I'm not here, so I can't be a bad boy anymore. I'm going to be such a good boy at Chicagoland next week. You're going to see the best race of my PRL career. I'm going to finish like P17.
Well, you're always my special little boy, Joey, so...
Thank you, Santa.
Like I said, if I could keep you in for the rest of the season, I would. It's a joy to have you and get to call these races with you, especially get some of the inside information, as you definitely have gotten a lot closer to some of these drivers than I have, even though I know a fair few of them. You've gotten some inside information that I didn't know before for some of them, so it's been very fun to listen to. And well, we are stacked back up once again, and we have, I believe, 19 cars still on the lead lap. Could be more than that, as there are a couple that are taking a bit more repairs here at the last moment, including Regan Jr. yet again. But we'll see if it remains that, as the pace car's already off once again.
And I'm scared. You see Tyler Justice in the number 6. He's in P6, starting on the outside there. That guy can't be counted out. He doesn't have much damage left anymore. He's been fully repaired. If we do get a long run to the end of the race, those 5 drivers in front of him are going to get very scared.
My dark horse might be Nick Silver. He's been kind of hovering around the front and making good moves when he needs to. So what's going to happen on this one, especially if we get a green flag run? Big stack up in the back there, as a few cars made nose-to-tail contact, but thankfully nobody got turned. It did slow down Bradley Hawley, though, and in fact the 4 of Bogue is going to get underneath him.
And slowed down Tyler Justice. He's been forced to the outside as they fan out 3 wide through turns 1 and 2. This is those tight quarters I was mentioning. Ted Lowendick to the inside of Justice. Justice clears him. He's safe up into P6. But look at Reese Bogue trying to rip the outside in that black and green number 4. Nick Silver on the bottom, Bogue on the top. Reese is a driver with a lot of short run speed and a driver with a lot of aggression.
They are still nose to tail down into 1 and 2. There's not been any separation. Zimke maybe has put a few car lengths between himself and the rest, but he's not exactly scampering away here at the very beginning. Off the corner, Bogue a little bit high. Underneath them, Tyler Justice taking a peek.
Tyler on the bottom there. He's going to be able to roll the bottom a little bit quicker, but Reese is going to try and get the run through the dogleg and build up that much more momentum. I don't know if this is going to work out for him, though, because Tyler is just so quick in both the long runs and the short runs. That's why he's been so good in his return to the PRL this season. He's clear of Bogue before the middle of the corner. He's up into P5 now, and Nick Silver is the next driver who's going to start getting very, very scared as his rearview mirror gets much, much tealer.
And that was Sink and Lowendick that were having a little bit of side-by-side battle that you saw in the background. They're going to sort that out with Teddy in 7th, Sink in 8th position. Back up to the front of the field, and Zemke about a quarter of a second ahead of Evans. He's reeled him back in.
Look at Westerfield trying to rip the top on the outside of Daniel Knight. This is really just Chaos City. Mark Kalin, Nick McLaughlin, Colton Lane, and the rest of the gang for the last couple spots in the top 10 here. Nick McLaughlin's doing a great job, by the way, staying out of trouble, up in the top 10. He's had some struggles this season, but he has had raw speed, and this is one of his best runs so far. If he can keep the tires under him, if he can keep his mind inside his head, he'll be in good shape here.
Still seeing some good aggressive moves here in the middle of the pack. Drivers not willing to give it up, even though they've been told to clean things up, and I think they're doing a pretty good job. Cervantes versus Westerfield for that 13th position in front of them. Lane versus Kalin as well, and Daniel Knight in behind them. Kind of surprised that Daniel Knight is still down in 12th. Not sure if he's had trouble from that one incident that he got involved in, or if he's just biding his time.
Well, he had to start from the back of the field because of well, actually, he didn't get a qualifying penalty. He just probably got an incident point on his qualifying lap, and it didn't count for him. He's had to drive up all the way from the back. He's starting to get where he really should be, but this is a driver who has had plenty of poles in this series, plenty of wins in this series. He's looking forward, and he's got 2 of his teammates now this season at Whataback in Colton and Mark. Can't get by either of them, though, because they're blocking the whole track too wide.
Yeah, and I checked. Both of his laps marked blank in qualifying. You're right. Good catch on that one. As he goes way up to the outside. Did he actually hit the wall there? He got very close.
Surprising. Normally, Mark Kalin's the guy who we see getting in the wall off of turn 2. He's lucky he was on the inside there, and he's going to see his teammate whip around the outside here through the dogleg. Mark's going to try and hold on by using the shorter run down there on the bottom, but Daniel Knight on the outside has been so fast, he's going to bang doors with his teammate Mark Kalin, and he's actually going to lose the spot because of that. Got a little bit too aggressive on the turn-in. Could have held the momentum on the outside, but he's going to be scuppered for a couple more corners because of that.
No, he's not. He's going right past Kalin, as Daniel Knight is now going to manage to be in 11th instead. It's going to be Kalin with Westerfield down below him, maybe 3 wide. Here comes Cervantes, 2.
I don't know why Mark was so slow down the front straight. It almost looked like he let Daniel by there because he felt bad about hitting him, but it looked like Daniel Knight turned into me. They were almost 3 wide going into turn 1 there with Cervantes, Westerfield, and Kalin. They managed to resolve that, and that's brought Dominic Bajin back into the fray after his big scare a couple of laps ago. He's looking at the edge of the top 10.
35 had to give some space there to the 25 of Cervantes, and they're still going to run wheel to wheel here as they cross the line once more. Halfway through this race now at this stage, things starting to look like they're getting into a rhythm, but it's certainly not giving us a dull moment, that is for sure. The 35 trying to carry the speed on the high side. He gets a bit of momentum, but Cervantes has the advantage down into 3.
Danny's a tough driver to race with when you're on his outside. He's going to leave you basically a car length, and that's about it. He did a good job off of turn 2 there of not getting Jim into the wall. Westerfield trying to fight back into turn 1. He's not really going to be able to. Danny Cervantes just in control of that position. He's clear. He's only looking forward now. Tyler Justice not really looking forward anymore, though. He's fallen back a little bit, maybe to save some tire and put up a challenge later.
I wonder if that's the case, because he's a full second off of Nick Silver in P4. This is Tyler Justice. He's under threat. That is Bogue going to the apron. You're allowed to use that if you haven't been watching. Drivers can cut across there if they want, but it's negligible on whether or not it gives you any sort of advantage. But in the meantime, the 4 still stays firmly in the mirrors of the number 6.
Phase 2 Chassis Works driver you see at the bottom of your screen. One of the best at tire saving, kind of the school of Richard Regan Jr., even though they're not teammates anymore. When they were teammates, they were a tire saving powerhouse. And this is why Tyler's won races this season. He's beaten Abner Acosta on tire saving, which you never see, or you at least you very rarely see. He's struggling quite a bit, though. That rear end damage, it may not be as bad as front end damage, but it's clearly hurting him. And RaceSpo gets to his inside, down the front straight, and that's going to be an easy move for him. Ted Lowendick thinks he can get a bite out of it as well. Justice is struggling a lot.
Ted gets his nose underneath, but he can't keep the speed up. He pinches it down to the bottom, tries to shorten it up across the apron once again. That brings him alongside the sixes, and we got a battle for the lead. When did Evans get up here? Zemke suddenly under threat. He's around the outside. Little bit of a loose moment for the 51, but he holds on.
We've had a long run finally for the first time tonight, and is this finally starting to go Jeff Evans' way? Has he been good at saving tires? He's going to bang doors with Zemke off of turn 1 as well. Bradley Holly's in the fight too, but it looked so comfortable for Adam Zemke just a couple of moments ago. The Whataback teammates have to sort things out behind him because both of them have a shot at this win again.
Went to check, and I didn't see any super slow laps out of the 57, so yeah, just ran him back down. Holly around the outside, and if Evans can't do it, maybe Holly can.
Maybe he can. You saw a little shake of the head from Jeff. He's given a very weird face. I think that's his focus face. We don't get to see that. We don't get to see that on camera that often. It's good to see Jeff in the heat of the moment, really just looking forward, doing everything he can. But even everything he had right there wasn't enough to hold back his teammate Bradley Holly. Holly's going to be the first order of attack here and see if he can get by Zemke and get Whataback in the lead of this race for the first time tonight.
Up from 6 on the grid this evening and looking potentially at the lead. Yeah, that face kind of reminded me. Do you remember Laust Olsen's pucker cam?
I don't think so, but I can picture it.
Okay. We'll talk about that later. But in the meantime, the 184 now hounding the 57 as they go into turns 1 and 2 once again. He does still have Jeff Evans behind him, so he can't dilly-dally if they start the battle.
Tyler Justice brings it down pit road. You see in the background, he's pulled off under green. He either thinks they can't make it to the end on fuel, or he's just going for tire strategy here. Either way, that's going to be interesting to track, because if we don't get another yellow, it's going to be dicey on fuel. With the amount of cautions we had that took us to about a half an hour in the race, it's going to be close. And Justice might think, with that damage, he's got to kick off the pit cycle early.
Yeah, and by the way, Richard Regan Jr. is still on the lead lap, but he's been basically chased by Zemke, Holly, Evans, all of our leaders, as he's about a half a second slower per lap typically. So the car definitely wounded, and he's just trying to make the best of it. I don't think he's going to be in the hunt like I may have predicted. Look at how close to the rear bumper Bradley is starting to get. I think he's going to try and get into the head of Adam now.
And that's an easy thing to do if you're Bradley Holly. Everybody knows the statistics. Everybody knows him as the driver who's won all the championships and over 100 races. Zemke's been racing with him for about as long as Holly's been racing, so it's not new situations here, but he still knows that Brad's going to put on the pressure. Brad's going to be on the attack, and it's going to be a fight for the next 18 minutes. There's some lap traffic up ahead, which is going to be interesting. That's Doug Evans in the highlighter green number 41. They're going to catch him in just a couple of laps' time, and it's tight quarters. That's why we've seen all the cautions. It's tough to pass a lap car, no matter how courteous they are, and they're going to hope to figure that out here soon.
And, you know, we've been talking so much about the drivers that have come over from the roadside. Holly did the reverse. He started over here on the oval side, actually jumped over to the road as we get a little bit of a side-by-side battle between McLaughlin and Cervantes. Cervantes is going to win that 10th place in the end. Holly's, a number of his wins did come over in the MX-5s, I believe.
Yeah, he was an MX-5 wizard. Unfortunately, we've lost that series since then. He's been testing the ropes in the GTP cars, and the Acura this season has been having some success, some not success, but either way, he's a driver who loves every flavor of racing. He especially loves this racing right now, though, because he just got a peek to the inside of Zemke for the first time. He stuck a nose to the inside. He's going to try and go for a switchback here with a run out of turn 2. This is the most pressure he's put on. This is the first chance he's really got direct opportunities to go for an overtake.
Yeah, sometimes it's the camera angles, but I swear down the front stretch, he looked like he was mighty dangerous to Adam Zemke about potentially taking that spot. Let's see what he does this time. Will they take two different lines? This time Holly's going to go a little bit more higher than the 57. Could he cut back underneath him? No, does not have enough. But look at the shallow entry there from Jeff Evans, and he'll drift up high in the middle, cut back down to the bottom. It does work for him. That was a strange one.
And it's an interesting battle if you are the drivers behind Zemke and Holly, because Normally, you'd think that that Brad would have been the driver who'd saved the most tire. He'd be on the attack for the rest of this battle. But Jeff Evans has been able to hang back in third. I don't know if he's necessarily pushing as much now that his teammates got ahead of him. He could be riding in line right now, saving that little bit more, and hoping that in the dying stages of this race, if Zemke and Holly run side by side like they might just do into turn 1 here, he'll be waiting to pounce. But I don't think Holly's going to be close enough this time.
It was still a very big run off of turn 2. Impressive stuff from Bradley. Needs to get maybe just a bit more, and maybe he could try and be aggressive, but we'll see if Brad feels the need to do that. There's still quite a bit of time left on this race, so I don't think he needs to make a dive. We'll see what kind of mood he's in tonight.
I hope he's in a divey mood. That'll make it exciting for us. But he's a slow burner at times, and it's going to develop here for 15 more minutes. I'm still curious about the fuel mileage though, because nobody has followed Tyler Justice in. Nobody's copied his strategy. And everybody else is just battling like we're going to the end of the race. Dominic Bajin, or as the ticker says, Dominic Bajin. He's made the pass on Mark Kalin, and he's looking forward too.
In fact, I think he had a little bit of, or close to side-to-side contact with the 62. Got him a little loose. Kalin now dropping behind the Canadian. 66 still running about a lane up to give him the space off the corner. Once again, just like last time, Mark seems to struggle with corner exit.
Remember how I said Kalin versus Cervantes was nuclear bomb versus nuclear bomb? This is a similar battle. Two drivers who have gotten into their fair share of incidents and their fair share of drama, but they're throwing everything at it still. Kalin doesn't have the run down through the dogleg this time. Through turns 1 and 2, he's got the shorter line, though, on the inside. Dominic still throwing it around the outside, though. They're going to meet on the exit, and you can see the focus on Mark Kalin's face. You would be able to see it more if he bothered to light the right side of his face more, but you can still tell he's throwing everything at Dominic Bajin.
I mean, all the lights are on the Star Destroyer right now, so he doesn't have the budget for them to be put on the right-hand side. Still, that is very cool, actually, there in the background. He is going to get the spot back, though. Well done. I thought that the 62 had run out of tire the way he was driving, but he's fought back hard.
I mean, Mark Kalin's an interesting driver because you see the way he drives. You see Slidey McSliderson all the time. He is a driver who wears the tires more than most, but he's also a driver who can use worn tires more than some others. You see him at the beginning stages of the race. It seems like he's already used up his stuff. And he'll be making it to the end of the race and about where he is right now in much more worn tires than everybody else, but still ahead of the likes of people like me who would be finishing 20th on old tires.
Last week we had a fun view for Brett Pancari. I don't know if he's also tied his camera in or if he's done anything interesting. Sounds like no. But last week he was dressed actually as Princess Daisy and didn't get him the results he wanted on that one. This time we'll swing around the outside, take 14th. Still in the mid-pack as he dives back up towards the outside wall.
Those are just like spine breakers as they come down off the banking onto the dogleg. It's crazy every single time. It does wear the tires a little bit more to drive like that because you are swerving hard left off the corner, but that's basically the way you have to drive the track right now. You have to be aggressive. You have to do what everybody's doing and go back down there. Mark Kalin's going to be thinking about that right now because Nick McLaughlin has also fallen off. Those tires are struggling quite a bit, and he's got a hungry pack behind him that he's going to have quite a job of holding back here.
Turn 2 exit cam saw Pancari take a few more grams of paint off of it. Let's see if he does it this time. Nope, looks like that one is clean as we're going to check out Nick McLaughlin's onboard cam as well. And down through 3 and 4. He is doing his best to try and run away from this group up at the front of them, side by side between Brett and Mark Kalin for the 12th position.
Ooh, a little bit of a slide going into turn 1 there for Mark Kalin. He's pushing quite a bit, but I do have more knowledge of Nick McLaughlin than anybody else in the field because he is a teammate, as is Ted Lowendick, and he's struggled to figure out the tires in this car because it is so different from what he's used to on the roadside that when he starts to fall off a little bit, he tends to get in danger. He doesn't necessarily know what to do as much as some other drivers, but he's done a good job of holding on here. Respoke to the inside of Tyler, or Nick Silver rather, though.
Silver with a nose ahead, but the inside goes to the 4, and he's going to try and make good use of it. The in and out car can't do much, and now Reese Bogue is into 4th. Now, did we mention that Tyler Justice is out of this race?
No, I thought he just came in early and was thinking about going to the end, but he's done, and Bradley Holly's finally gone for the lead. He's finally made the move on Zemke.
Here's side by side. Bradley's to the inside, but he gets pitched down once again. Just so counterintuitive. It's the shorter distance, but these cars do not seem to like that very bottom line, and Adam Zemke is going to make him work for it. They're going to come off almost dead even. Holly goes all the way to the bottom.
Zemke's been able to make the bottom work. He's been able to make the top work. He's going to have to make the top work big time here in 1 and 2 because Holly sends it in deep to go for almost a slide job ahead of Zemke. Zemke's down on the apron trying to get the momentum back, and that is going to be Holly totally in the lead right now. Look at Jeff Evans ready to pounce for second as well.
I was wondering if he'd be able to get it to the apex, and he did. That gave him the lead now. Bradley Holly up to the front to lead this race on lap 66 with 10 minutes left to go on the clock. What does Zemke have left? Is Evans going to be able to do anything? Ironically, this is now a battle between New York and Illinois. Which is your favorite, deep dish or New York-style pizza?
That's a tough question. Jeff Evans is probably going to have an easier answer to that question, though, because he's actually moved down to South Carolina in recent months, so he's going to be seeing South Carolina-style pizza, and I don't even know what that would be. Is that like... I don't even know what they eat down there. Seafood pizza? Catfish pizza? Something like that?
I was going to say some barbecue maybe is kind of more in line with North Carolina, but Zemke is fighting them hard, but once again, he's on the outside. Evans unable to complete the pass. He'll get back in line. Will he take some notes from what Holly did and try to do the same?
He's got to start thinking about this here soon. With only 10 minutes on the clock, that's only 20 laps to go. It's a reasonably long time, but when you need to make a move and develop it over the laps at Phoenix, you've got to get track position when you can. You've got to send dives when you can. Evans looks to the inside of Zemke again. The door's not open, though. Adam's done a good job of running both the top, the bottom, and the middle, putting that car everywhere it needs to be to hold back Jeff. And he's going to continue to do that into turn 1 here, just parking it right above the seam and not leaving the door open for the car behind.
Yeah, but have you seen that 4 in the background? Reese Bogue is suddenly right on top of them. The more they fight, the more this is going to make life easy for Reese.
I don't even know how that's possible. Reese Bogue has done a better job of tire saving than anybody else in the top 3 right now. That's not something that usually happens, but he's done a fantastic job here. He's putting the ultimate pressure on right now, and he's another one of those drivers who will send the dive when he gets the opportunity. He will go for a move at any cost, and if there's a little bit of a bobble in front of him, he's going to be going for it. He's looking to the outside of Jeff Evans.
Already he's starting to really put the pressure on of those two, as it looks like McLaughlin and Westerfield now going to battle for position. That's for 13th. He's been passed by Bunkari and Kalen as well.
But this is good news for Bradley Holly here, because Zemke and Evans side by side, slowing each other down, losing all sorts of ground. Zemke's clear of Evans into the braking zone, and that's going to allow Reese Bogue to go up on that higher line. He's going to build a run here through 3 and 4. He's going to switch it back so aggressively down to the bottom. He's looking for every lane to get by Jeff Evans. None of them have worked yet, but it might work here into turn 1.
Tries the Holly move, but unfortunately it's not going to get him enough of a run to get actually ahead of the 51. Does a good job off the corner, though. Thought he was going to be able to stay wheel to wheel. No dice. They'll head down into 3 once again.
And he's just trying to find a way to get by, but he's tried everything, and then none of it has worked. And for all the job he's done of tire saving, for how he seems to be a little bit faster than anybody else, it's not quite fast enough to be able to blow by. He's really gotta throw everything at it here to try and make this move. He gets to the inside of Jeff Evans again through 1 and 2, but it's just not quite enough. He needs to be that little bit more clear, maybe that little bit more along the outside to be able to make that move. He's just not been able to get there yet.
7 minutes now left to go. About 14 laps left for these drivers if we stay green, which so far, whatever Bradley Holly said to them seems to have had pretty good effect, because we haven't seen one since then. And the 51 is having to deal with those very worn tires. And you talked about fuel before. Do we believe that they are tight?
Well, luckily we do have some drivers we can ask right now. Ted Lowendick sits in 6th right now, right behind all this action. So let's drag him in here real quick and ask him. Ted, are you all comfortable to make it to the end on fuel?
Yes. I am. I don't know if they did. If they didn't take fuel in the pit stop, maybe they're close, but the fuel I put in at the pit is the same amount I will be over on the race finishes. So.
All right, thank you, Ted. Fuel analyst, new job position. See, Joe, isn't that so convenient? We can just drag the drivers in and ask them. It's good.
I feel so nervous doing that. I don't know how you can just do that with a straight face, as the 12 is going to get loose now. That's James Morgan. He'll lose out to Dominic Begine, who will slip ahead of him into 15th. And McLaughlin is very much going backwards. He was as high as 11th earlier in this race, but he's run out of speed, maybe run out of tire at this point. Speaking of which, the top 4, top 5 are all equidistant apart. What was a close battle at the front has suddenly died down.
Zemke is he's taking little nibbles out of Bradley Holly's lead, though. It was as high as half a second a little while ago, and he's moved forward by hundredths. That's not going to be enough to actually make the move. That's not going to be enough to win the race. But if Zemke has done a good job here, at least in this little slice of the long run, to save a little bit more tire for the end, the battle for the win isn't over. It's stretched out a little bit. It's stratified, but all 4 of these guys, if they can put in one last challenge, it's still anybody's game here with about 13 laps to go.
Well, I slipped the thesaurus away from Joey Tebben. We're going to continue to watch this battle for the lead that is bubbling up as Jeff Evans getting ever closer to the back of Adam Zemke for the P2. If he is going to catch Holly, he's going to have to deal with some great pressure, not just from Jeff, but as we mentioned, Reese Bogue. I thought that maybe Nick Silver would start to get involved, but looks like maybe he's not quite as close as I thought he would be. You see flashes of him here from above on the blimp, but he's going to have to make up some ground.
And I shouldn't have mentioned anything about Zemke bringing that gap down, Joe, because right as I said that, he lost a full 10th to Bradley Holly on the previous lap. So whether he does have some tire here to fight him, he's not quite had the consistency, he's not quite had the speed here to bring that gap back down, but there's some trouble ahead. There's some lap cars that we still have to deal with. Emery, the damaged Richard Regan Jr., Nick Hunter as well. They could make Brad's life a little bit more difficult here if he catches them.
Yeah, Richard is trying to keep Emery behind him. They've got a lap car between them right now. But Richard is so close to losing that lead lap. It's not going to mean much but pride here in his rivalry with Holly over the years. I'm sure he does not want to be lapped by the Texan. And he's got to survive for 4 more minutes to do it. Will they be caught up? Holly can't afford to back off here. He's got them still right there.
No, I don't think he's going to back off, but it's dangerous to lap cars at Phoenix. You put yourself on the outside in a bad place, you leave the door open. You put yourself on the inside in the bad place, you leave the run worse off than it could have been. He's going to have to start dealing with these guys soon, though. For all the theory in his head of how am I going to deal with these lap cars, he's suddenly got both of them right in front of him. Jacob Emery has a reason to try and stay on the lead lap. Waylon Turner's actually 2 laps down, so he'll try and get out of the way. Emery does get out of the way. He throws it up high, but Holly did get held up there behind the back of Waylon Turner.
And Emery, I think, maybe brushed the wall, and that's what convinced him to get out of the way. This did not help Zemke, though. I think he's continuing to lose 10th after 10th. It's now up to 6/10 of a second now. As I thought maybe there was a battle for position, but no, it looks like Bogue still sitting behind Evans in spite of Waylon in there. Oh, and into the wall for Jacob Emery in a hard way off of turn 2 again. So he's not been having a good final couple laps here. It's down to less than 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes to go by my calculations. That's going to be about 6 laps to go at the line, maybe 7 laps. And it's all starting to look very Bradley Holly-shaped in victory lane. Zemke's still putting the pressure on. Evans is still putting the pressure on. He can't afford to make a single mistake and fall out of the groove. But if he can stay into that groove, he is as comfortable as he's been, and he could be looking for his first win of the season finally.
And if you're Regan Jr., do you make life difficult? They don't have to leap out of the way of these leaders. Should he try and do so? Or, well, yes, he is. There you go. So he's a good sportsman.
Well, as much as Richard wanted to hold Brad back, he was pretty slow. He was doing 29.5s. Holly was doing 29.0s, even in lap traffic. So it was only a matter of time that was going to happen. But yeah, Richard's not had a very fun day today. Good on him for staying out though and scoring every point he can. He knows he's fighting for a championship in this season. He knows he's probably locked into the championship 4, but I like to see drivers stay out, complete the full race distance, and Richard's doing that. It may only be 18th, but those could be critical points, like I said, in the championship finale.
Same, yeah, I'm with you. Think to Logan Sargent recently back in the U.S. getting those points on a penalty too. You just never know what's going to happen as they come through 3 and 4 once again. Going to be 3 laps to go, or are we still at 4? It might actually be tight here.
It might be 4 laps to go because they're not running even 30-second laps. They're running about 28s, 29, so I'm no mathematician. I don't have a calculator on me, so I think it's going to come down to whether Bradley Holly crosses the line in a couple of laps' time. Do we get the white flag or do we get 2 to go? It's going to be tight.
It's going to be tense. Lowendick, who started on the front row, may have lost some positions, but he's been representing himself well. Still, he's got Thomas Sink right behind him and threatening to take away that P6 here late in the race. Can he hold off the 48?
This is the closest battle on the track right now as the stuff up front is circled around. Thomas Sink looks to be very quick right now. He may have saved a little bit of tire for the final attack here. On the exit of turn 2, he's got to run. He's not going to be close enough to go for a dive on Ted into turn 3. But if he can set up 1 final lap here, 2 final laps, potentially, no, it is the white flag. 1 more time around.
Ooh, it was tight. They're running 28 nines, 29 flats, and there is about 27 seconds left. So 1 to go. It's up to a second ahead of Adam Zemke for Bradley Holly as we watch this battle between Teddy and Thomas. And Teddy's going to fight him for it. Oh, but he's going to slide off the corner as down into the final turn, Bradley Holly comes to take the win here at Phoenix and redeem himself from Martinsville.
Beautiful stuff from Bradley Holly, and adds yet another win to that everlasting tally. 118 wins now for Bradley Holly in the PRL.
And Sink got by Teddy Lowendick. He took 6th place. Excellent work by the 48 there at the very end. Teddy maybe just slipping and sliding a little too much, but I'm sure he'll still be happy with how that one went in the end as he's getting ready to celebrate another victory here. And the 57 zipping on by, probably giving him a thumbs up as he went through. That was a great race from Adam as well. There it is, the donuts being unleashed. And even in celebration,
he's almost smiling.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see the hint of it in there.
This is vintage Bradley Holly, though, and you might say the 3 guys who won all the races this season, Justice, Regan, and Acosta, all got taken out, but Holly was ahead of all of them when they all got taken out. This is a legit win for him. He was faster than anybody today. This is the Bradley Holly that won all those championships, and you can't count him out for the playoff championship this season, or well, the season points are probably going to be tough. He's had some bad races, but he could very well win in that championship 4 in the final race.
This is a 60 runs into him just with some fun there at the end. Yeah, Acosta maybe could have given him a challenge if he didn't have his problem at the start, but those are all what ifs, and I'm with you. Bradley Holly getting a well-earned win over Adam Zemke, who finishes in 2nd today. Jeff Evans with a 3rd over Reese Bogue from 12th to 4th. Not too bad. Nick Silver was 5th and Thomas Sink 6th. Teddy Lowendick not able to get that first win quite yet, but he did finish 7th. Colton Lane was P8. Daniel Knight from 23rd to 9th. That is awesome. And Danny Cervantes rounds out your top 10. Joey?
Princess Peach himself, Brett Punkari, great quiet drive forward for him to get up to P11 at the end of it all, ahead of Mark Kalin, who started to fall off a little bit at the end. Westerfield was with him. Nick McLaughlin in the top 10 at times, fell off to P14, but he's still going to be satisfied with a finish in the top 15 this season. Dominic Begine had some trouble. James Morgan had some trouble. Nick Hunter had some trouble. They all finished on the lead lap, though. Richard Regan Jr., his first real bad race of the season. This is going to be his drop week, right ahead of Jacob Emery and Doug Evans to the end of the top 20.
Then from there, 21st goes to Waylon Turner. A DNF from here on down, including Tyler Justice. A shocker. Not sure what put him out, but Acosta, Cowgill, Fire, Jones, and Scruggs also didn't get to the checkered flag. The man who made it to that checkered flag first was the 184 of Bradley Holly. We're going to have a little bit of a chat with him and see if we can get maybe a bigger smile out of Mr. Holly. Brad, congratulations. There were frustrations last week at Martinsville. You came here. We heard a bit of the frustration over the radio trying to get everybody to race cleaner, and it seemed to work, and you got a win out of it.
Yeah, I guess every once in a while you got to yell at the Oval crew and tell them to get their heads out of their butt and start racing so we can. But I mean, all in all, it was a pretty good race once we got going.
Talk about that move for the lead, though. We saw you absolutely send it down inside of Zemke, and I thought maybe he would be able to undercut you, but you somehow got it down to the apex. Did you know you could get it back in there?
Yeah. I did that a couple times in practice, just to see what I could do, and I knew exactly when Zemke was going to lift and hit the brakes. So if I kept it in the middle groove, I knew I was going to be able to turn it down and kind of cut off his exit and keep him from getting next to me.
This track, we know, can sometimes cause some yellows, and obviously we saw that in the first part. Did this go how you expected, or did you figure that it would be even messier because of what we saw last week?
Given how last week, I was hoping everybody was going to come into today and be a lot more cautious, but it's Phoenix. I mean, I know I got aggressive at one point on a restart, but this track can be pretty tough on restarts, especially with the new configuration and how we can go pin wide pretty much going into turn one.
Well, eventually you guys got it all sorted out. You gave us a great show, I have to admit, and congratulations on the win, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bradley Holly going from P6 to Victory Lane here today. Up next, I believe Joey has caught up with Adam Zemke.
Indeed, I have Adam on pole for the first time this season, dominant in the first stage of the race, but what more did you need to hold on to Brad there at the end and hold on to that win? Adam Zemke, do we have a copy?
Oh, guys, are you?
Oh, there we go. Now we got you.
I don't know. I guess I could have saved my tires a little bit better during that run, and I think I saved enough to keep Jeff from getting around me, so I don't think I could have done too much better. I think Bradley's just a monster at this, so and once he got around me, it's not like I was losing so much time to him, so I guess I could have saved just a little bit more.
Well, Chicagoland's coming up next week. We know you love that place. Won there in the trucks a couple of seasons ago. Is that going to be the place where you do get up good and maybe clinch yourself that championship 4 spot?
Yeah, I do really like Chicagoland for whatever. That's kind of my home track, and I always like doing good there, and I run it most of the time whenever I'm doing practice and things. So I feel like I have a little bit of an edge there, and confidence from this week I think will help a little bit. But everybody's fast in this league. It's so hard to tell who's going to be quick and who's not every week. So I'd love to get a win to get in the championship 4, because I think Abner, Richard, and Bradley kind of have a pretty for sure spot. And it's kind of me and Jeff running for the last spot there. And I was hoping he'd do a little worse tonight. Not that I dislike Jeff or anything, but I think we're pretty close in points, and I need a big jump. So.
Now, you could say you dislike Jeff. We hate Jeff Evans here in the race spot booth. We're not Jeff Evans fans, but we'll see you next week, Adam. I'll see you on the track, and congrats on the good run tonight.
Thank you guys, and thanks to everybody that makes this whole thing possible. This is so much fun, and I like being there every week. And you guys have a good night.
Adam Zemke coming home second tonight after his best race of the season, but we do have one more driver to talk to. The most acrimonious, hated driver in the PRL, Jeff Evans, gets to talk to Joe Peak.
Oh, no, I like Jeff Evans. Jeff, an excellent third place, but you were the point man for What a Back Overdrive for much of this race, and then suddenly Holly shows up in your mirrors. Was it a case of, oh no, here comes the boss?
No, I mean, honestly, at that point I was kind of stuck behind Adam, and playoff points-wise for me, Adam winning would be catastrophic, so Brad getting up there and getting by me and then getting past Adam was like second best case scenario for me, aside from me winning.
We had a little bit of a fun debate up here because we noted that while you have moved, you were from Club New York and Zemke was from Club Illinois. So there's, of course, the pizza going on. But now you're in North Carolina. Is there any special pizza down there?
Not that I found yet. Just kind of still trying to figure out the lay of the land down here.
We head to Chicagoland as well, so maybe you'll get a chance to try some of the deep dish while you're over there. How do you usually fare over at the strangely orbular track?
Historically pretty well. I'm just happy that I was able to kind of break a bad run of races I've had. Between Mondays and Wednesdays, I've wrecked out of the last 4, and I think only one of the 4 I've completed a lap. So tonight was really good to kind of get that ship righted and hopefully and keep it going next week.
Well, Jeff, you had your best race of the season and the one race when I wasn't on the track. Is that a sign?
Yeah. Can you stay in the booth next week, please?
I'll think about it. Next season, maybe. But congrats on the third at the very least. You did good tonight. I like the Halloween car.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Evans coming home in third. What a beautiful boy. What a good guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say we gotta give some praise after all the hate that Joey was unleashing there for a moment. But thank you everybody for joining us once again. Of course, thanks to the PRL for bringing us on for the coverage, as well as a thank you to the team today, Joey and Dustin. Next race, as we said, for the trucks is going to be the iRacing Super Speedway, and here for the Grand National cars, it is going to be Chicagoland. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.